All right, guys. Welcome to podcast episode 20.
Howdy.
Hello.
Or part 3 of our end of the year podcast. So,
C team.
C Team.
C team.
Hey, I resent that.
Hey, we call it C Team because it's the console team, not because you're the third best. Okay.
I see.
Okay.
Big contract.
Well, first of all, thanks a lot for joining us, guys. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your Friday.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
To do this. So, we can get started with our part 3 end of the year stuff in a minute, but we can talk about what we always like to talk about, and that is the games we played this week. And I'm pretty certain you guys had quite a few you wanted to talk about. I think so.
Definitely.
Let's just start at the top and go with Escard.
Okay. Well, see, I didn't know that we were talking about all the games we were playing, so I just limited it down to one on my list. But...
That's fine. I mean, that just makes it shorter. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But yeah, I've actually just finished Valkyria Chronicles 4, which is on the PS4, the Xbox, the Switch, and I'm pretty sure the PC. It's one of those strategy RPG kind of mixtures, but this one, if you've played any of them, they're more like it's like a World War II kind of alternate history type game where it's got like, fantasy elements with the military aspect of it. But it plays a lot like XCOM. If you've played that, I'm sure a lot of you guys have at some point.
With an anime twist.
Yeah, it's got some anime action in there for sure. It's definitely made by Sega, so it's very Japanese. But it's those games are they've got really great gameplay. The stories, they're pretty okay. I like playing those games for the story, but overall, I really enjoy the gameplay in that, and then just kind of the pacing is always really good. They have a really cool watercolor art style that I like.
Yeah,
and they kind of present it in like a storybook mode. It's pretty cool. I don't know if you guys ever played any of those games before.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did we not get 3 in the States? Valkyria Chronicles 3.
3 is the one that we did not get. We got 1 on the PS3, and it was a very underappreciated game because no one had PS3s in 2008 for good reason. And the second game came on PSP. I don't know why. I guess there's a lot of people like that game, but I think it was far inferior to 1. And then 4 is kind of like 1 in my opinion. It's a pretty good good sequel. It plays a lot like 1. So.
And they did remaster the first one for PS4.
Yep, and Steam and Switch actually, but not Xbox.
Oh yeah.
So as someone who played 1 and then got just totally disoriented by 2 and couldn't handle it, should I jump in?
Yeah,
Is 4 the one for me?
4's good. Yeah, 4 plays like 1. To me, 4 and 1 are very similar, and that's what I like. They added some cool quality of life changes. They added a class. It's a better game than 1. I'm not sure if the characters are quite as cool, but overall, I mean, it had pretty good plot twists, I thought. And I don't know, like I said, I really like the pacing. There's a lot of extra content. It was a well-made game. I really liked it.
There's no continuity missed by not playing the others.
No, I mean, there's like your typical they talk about this character that you would know if you played the first game, but they're pretty different. So
okay.
Yeah, good stuff. Suggest trying it. It's it's available at your local game store.
Well,
nice.
Just with now, obviously, we probably have some more games on here. I'm surprised. Okay, I guess Ron has Smash on there. I was like,
I mean,
why does nobody have Smash on their list?
I knew someone bring that up, so I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like I knew.
I figured we could use that as a group one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That one's easy.
I was like, geez. All right. Cool. Well, Bort, what about you?
All right. Well, I've been playing. I actually got back into Monster Hunter World, and I've been playing Tetris Effect also, which I'll talk about that more in the next segment. But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with Monster Hunter. I didn't play a ton of it at launch because I played slower than everybody else, and then everybody flew past me, and so where I needed to grind for shit, like I was just way behind. So I stopped playing, and then I had a hankering lately, so picked it up again, and man, really remembered how much I love Monster Hunter.
Yeah, what's the DLC update with that game? Has there been a lot?
So they've kind of just added monsters, not so much like not a whole, I guess you could call expansions worth. There is something coming. I forget what it's called. It's like ice something. I'm not sure.
It's beginning of the year, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And I think that might be console only first. you might know better for PC, David. Have you kept up with Monster Hunter on PC?
Well, my guess is we're still behind by a few months at least.
Yeah. Like, I think they just added the behemoth fight from
Yeah.
Final Fantasy 14 and a Monster Hunter for
recently.
PC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see they do seasonal events, and it's usually just like more armor sets and stuff. So I'm wearing the winter one in that
The
video.
Santa.
So
The
yeah,
Santa
I look like
outfit.
Santa Claus.
Yeah, that looks cool.
Oh yeah, and my cat's a little snowman. It's pretty cool.
Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
I don't know, stuff like that is I think it's neat, and the armor is actually pretty decent. So I'm having fun with it, especially since I have so much of the main game to go through still. Just grinding shit out and actually just playing the game. I love it. I've played Monster Hunter for a long time, and I know we probably haven't talked about World much on this podcast, but the quality of life changes.
Hey, we talked about it on Tuesday because it was somebody's game of the year.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And then
Very cool.
we've talked about it a couple times, I think. But
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna say that game kind of I feel like lost a little bit of its luster because it came out so early. It came out in January.
yeah,
this year.
yeah,
And so I think people kind of forgot it existed. Luckily, the PC version came out late, so I think some new people kind of remembered. Oh yeah, this game was awesome.
right.
Yeah.
But
And they've been so good about supporting the game. Capcom has.
yeah, for free too, man.
Yeah, for free. So
Well, didn't it kill in the sales? Like, it did
Yes.
just great, right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, who'd have thought you put it on like a console everybody plays and it sells well.
it's weird the last few years. I mean, publishers have come to realize the beginning of the year is just this great time to release big titles.
Yeah, yeah.
So now everybody's starting to do it.
Yeah, I like that game a lot. I put over 100 hours into it without even thinking about it. So
Yeah,
Nice.
good stuff.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And then what about you, Ron?
Okay, so I'm the one who was guilty of putting a lot of games on here. So I'm going to
That's
talk
fine.
about I'm going to talk about one of them later in the review section. So I'll hold off on that one, and I'll just talk about Hitman 2, which came out. I want to say a month ago, 2 months ago, something like that. And it's pretty unique. Like, if anybody played the last one that was digital only, it was like episodic. Fortunately I didn't play it episodic. I just bought like a sale where all the episodes were there at once, so it just
Mhm.
felt like a regular Hitman game.
Okay.
So they nixed that this time, and it's like, all right, here it is, all on one disc. So it's essentially the same game, just kind of like a new kind of open venues. Because what it did compared to the old Hitman games is they took the idea of having like mission-based levels that were kind of sandboxy, but really they were more linear than you thought. And then they turned it into, they just basically expanded on that idea. So it's like each of these missions is a decent sized sandbox. It's no open world game, but it's shockingly large. Like, they were able to cut levels into like 3 pieces and like reuse assets from other levels to create entire like new venues and give it away as free DLC.
Yeah,
That was pretty
Cool.
incredible, I thought.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
yeah, I'm sorry. Go for it.
I was just gonna say I never got around to playing these, but I really want to.
Well, I know the big change for this one. I thought that because I know Warner Brothers published this one. I know Square Enix had published the last one, and I know the developer. When I was actually at a conference where I spoke to 2 of the lead developers, and they spoke about how the biggest thing they wanted to change was not to make it episodic, because they felt like a lot of people may have missed, maybe like, oh, this game's fun, but 2 months later, I don't really care anymore, because that game, the structure, I don't think really fits an episodic feel like a Walking Dead might have at the time, or like Life is Strange, those story-based games where you're watching almost like an episode of a TV show or something.
Mhm.
So it kind of cuts the gameplay out. And like Tron said, he got to play it when it all was like a complete game, which I think if that had been the case, that game would have probably been more successful, which is what I think led Warner Bros. To picking it up, because I don't think Square wanted to keep going with it. But I'm glad
It was an interesting
life.
experiment.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of staggering that such a big company made a decision like that with kind of such a well-known franchise,
IP,
because
yeah.
I believe the last one, like the one that was the final one on the 360, sold pretty well. And
Yeah.
that was the one I didn't like, and sorry, I don't remember its name, but
Absolution.
it was basically, there you go. It basically turned into like a third-person cover shooter. And I remember I couldn't stand it. So going back to
That sounds
Square
terrible.
and now Warner
I didn't play
Brothers. Oh yeah, it's rough, that's for sure. But this one's kind of like back to the old school with a couple new tricks, and I just think that picking up a brick or like a soda can and just smashing it into somebody's head like to knock them out. It's there's nothing else like it.
I've heard the game has such a good sense of humor about itself. Like it doesn't take itself too seriously. You know, like he's running
Oh,
around.
it's hilarious.
I don't know. You could dress up as a clown or whatever, and you know, this big assassin dude just passes as a regular old schmo.
Oh yeah, there's definitely parts where you can tell that like maybe the Square Enix influence is still there because it's like you'll dress up as like a macabre Easter bunny or something like that, and it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem like an American developer, you know. But yeah, there's little bits of flavor. And then my next game is Smash, so I figured we could kind of open the floor right now if we all wanted to talk about it, since I don't think it comes up later in the show. No,
Well,
so I think this is it. This is our chance.
Yeah, talk about it.
We're pretty big Smash heads here, so I mean, we could get pretty deep.
This
But
could be a podcast about Smash
Well,
Bros.
let's talk about what you thought
That's
about
true.
it and stuff like that. Just don't go too deep into all the new move sets and all that kind of stuff. You know.
So-
Yeah, I'll go first.
Yeah,
since
go
it's- so basically, I picked it up recently. Still trying to get all the characters, so I'm like, I think 60 out of 75, 76. I forget what the final total is. And I can tell my first impression so far is that it's not quite the Smash sequel that I think maybe it was originally advertised as. But that being said, it's still probably the best one to be released so far, just gameplay wise.
I agree.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Like
no,
every-
go sir.
I was just say everything's so tight about it. Like you could tell how refined it is from the last entry.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they kind of went back and looked at some balancing issues, which I think was one of the problems with Smash 4. And they tried to find a medium between Melee, which people for some reason still like, and the new Smash that's out now to make, because Smash 4 I thought was great. I didn't think there was much wrong with it besides maybe some balancing with some of the characters, but I thought the speed was fine, but people still wanted it to be faster from what I understand. And I feel like this game kind of gave some of that. It kind of felt a little bit quicker. And I don't know. I feel like it just made the game more, I guess, inclusive for anyone that likes Melee still or wants to play one of the newer ones.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. When I played Smash 4 and we played that a ton as well, I thought it was near perfect. Like there was not much about that game other than balancing issues, which you're going to have with every fighter,
You have
regardless.
65 characters or something.
Yeah, oh my
it's
God,
Yeah.
yeah. Like in fact, Smash is pretty unique because it's like if you went and looked at a tier list for Smash 4, you'd see your couple S tier ones. There's always one character that's insane, but then there was like 20 characters that were kind of in that next tier, which I feel like is pretty rare. It's like it's usually you're recycling like 4 characters in tournament play and MLG and stuff like that. But I had 3 kind of main takeaways of it so far. One, the big characters are back, and I really like it.
Yes.
I feel like that's been lacking since probably the inception of Smash, is that the big characters are fun to play as. They have a lot of killing power. They're great in like 4-man free-for-alls, but when it becomes to 1-on-1, they're just going to get crushed by anybody fast. And this one, not so much. I think, in fact, the big characters are like
They're up there.
maybe overpowered to a degree.
Yeah.
Especially the new ones, K. Rool and Ridley. Like
Yeah.
they're both pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
nice to see those characters because it was like, oh, my joke character is Bowser or Donkey Kong.
Mhm.
And that was, like, oh, they're fun to use, but I don't expect to win. But now it's like you see a guy using King Rool, like King K. Rool, and you're like, oh, that's
Yeah, fear. You're like, oh God, I'm afraid now. I never thought I'd say this about a crocodile.
When you
With
did
that
your
clarinet.
tournament, how many people did you have in the
Oh,
playing at one
gosh.
time? Playing at
Well,
one time.
that's interesting because we actually tried out the new mode as well as the tournament. And do you remember what it was called? It was like it was basically like the tag team Smash mode it had, where if like we had 10 people and everybody was given one character, and it was a team of 5,
Mhm.
and so two people would start at the top one-on-oneing, and if you killed the other guy, you stuck around and you played the next fighter in the list, and I believe you healed 30 HP, something like that.
30.
And so it was really cool because we had one of our guys on a team. He was basically tanking the whole team. Like he was going through everybody, and it was just really exciting to see somebody take him down, or to see if he would run the whole table.
Yeah.
So I think that's a mode.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it'll get a lot of mileage. I think that just the quality of life changes that the game had, like 2 specifically, you can now, if you hold an attack button and then a jump button, you will automatically short hop, and which is awesome because that's something that's kind of separated your more medium to casual players from the people that are just going to wreck you, is the ability to short hop.
Yep.
And then the fact that you can transfer between Battlefield and Final Destination on every level, I think is just amazing.
Oh, and finally turn stage hazards off.
Oh, yes.
So you could play a legit stage layout without all the annoying background stuff going on that could mess you up.
Yeah. I feel like they try to cater to every single person. And there's Smash has always been great about fluff, which is just extra content they just put in there just to have. And this game has just got, I spent about 3 hours trying to just mess around with the song frequencies and the stages. And there's I'm not even halfway done. There's so many stages in this game with so many different songs. And it's very cool. You can make your own custom playlist to make any song from the songs you like, which is very cool. And I don't know. I just think it's, to be honest, I think for $60, it's hard to really beat that as far as what you're getting in that package. And the amount of mileage that game can get for just playing the different modes they added, like you said, Tron. And just, anyone can play it. Any type of gamer can play it and have a good time with it.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning the single player stuff. None of us here, I think, are particularly big on that stuff just because we tend to play multiplayer so much. But what's there for single player is pretty robust and actually really interesting. The World of Light mode, it's essentially you start as Kirby, and then as you go through, you unlock more characters you can use. But it introduces this new thing called spirits, which you also unlock as you go. And they're basically equipable items that give you different kind of stat boosts. It might give you better defense or attack, but also it could give you better attack with gun items and stuff like that. And plus, as you're going through the mode, all the fights you're doing are themed to the spirits that you're encountering. So one of the funny ones that I heard about, I haven't done it yet, but so this game is basically a museum for almost all of gaming, right? And since Snake's in there, there are spirits from the rest of the Metal Gear series, and one of them is Paz from she was essentially in,
Peace Walker, right?
Yeah, Peace Walker, and then she was in Ground Zeroes.
Yeah,
so this isn't a huge spoiler just because Ground Zeroes is such a short thing, but basically at the end of Ground Zeroes, you discover that the enemy implanted a bomb inside Paz. Well, the themed fight for her is she has bombs or something, or whatever character is representing her.
Nice.
That's the darkest thing you can do.
I didn't know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Who thought of this? Who was in their development team that was all right, I'm gonna look for some obscure inside jokes.
I know.
Plants everywhere.
It's pretty hilarious for a Nintendo game in any respect.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm glad you finally explained the spirits.
Yeah, actually, I haven't even tried that mode. I've been playing so much other stuff in that game.
Yeah, take a look at it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's good. Great game.
My favorite part about Smash is the guy who made all the Family Guy characters and then did the tournament with them. That was great.
Oh,
I didn't see that.
Characters. Yeah. That's great.
Well,
I think Chris won, by the way.
I will say we have leaped a lot of praise on Smash, but there is a 9 million pound gorilla in the room, and that's the online.
Online, yeah.
And it's
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've opened up a gaming website in the last month, you probably heard something about it because it's been a bit of a debacle. In fact, from my perspective, the only mode I've really been able to make playable has been arenas with people and most likely locally, within your state. It seems those tend to work okay, but I've seen all kinds of it's pretty sad when the state of a game in 2018 is you got to go look up a trick on Reddit to set your crazy DNS settings or something like that on your modem to get Smash to work right. It's come on, guys.
They're
Also, you need that network card.
Yeah, they're suggesting you buy the LAN adapter. It's come on, man.
Yeah,
just buy the LAN adapter. That's what you have to do. I've been telling you guys for years that wireless is shit, and y'all don't believe it.
Nintendo shoved that down our throats for sure.
That's right.
Yeah.
David, you'll be proud of me. I have all my systems wired.
Yeah, boy. There we go.
Well, you'll enjoy this too, then, David, because apparently there's a big scandal with the wired adapter as well, because the one that Nintendo sells is not USB 3.0 compatible,
Oh my
which is
god.
apparently what the Switch requires. So basically, you're plugging in nothing.
Right.
When you plug
It's
it
not
in,
helping
wired
you. Yeah.
adapter. Yeah.
That
And
doesn't make
until
any
they
sense.
yes, it's just been a nightmare for
It's
them.
wild.
Buy this thing that doesn't do anything. Haha.
They'll never get it right.
Oh. Man, we talked about it
Yeah.
a couple podcasts ago. They're sounding like Bethesda.
Oh man.
Ooh, that's rough, man. Don't do that. Come on now. That's not very nice.
I'll say
Sorry,
with
continue.
Nintendo, it seems to just be like this kind of mentality they've had, like ever since I believe it was the GameCube when they called the internet a fad and went towards the what do they call it? It was like the GC GBA adapter. Like it was basically their version of like a two-screen game.
Mhm.
Because they went all in on that instead of internet, and ever since then, I feel like they've maybe never been able to recruit the talent or kind of like breed it within the company, and they've always had a blind spot for online.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's rough.
Unfortunate.
Well, the one thing that came out good with the GBA adapter was Crystal Chronicles.
So good they're bringing it back next year.
Yeah,
For the
baby.
Switch.
I'm ready.
Why?
So ready right now.
I'm
Well,
sure-
man,
I'm glad somebody
what
is.
your friends do you hate enough to make them carry the bucket the whole game?
Oh yeah, that was kind of. We don't have to talk about it right now. But anyways, I will say that the only way we got to play Crystal Chronicles is I had to buy all those Game Boy Advances.
Oh, that game
Yeah.
got expensive very quickly.
Yeah.
Yes, it
yeah.
did.
All right. Anyways, okay. Well, cool. Smash. Good game to buy. You said it's
Yes.
worth it. Okay.
If you have a Switch, get it.
Cool.
If you don't have a Switch, buy a Switch and then get it.
Yeah.
Did you talk about Red Dead already?
No, I think I'll save that for the review.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Let's talk about Let's Go, because I think that's the next one on the list.
Yeah.
So who's played Let's Go, real quick?
I am playing it right now.
Okay,
Same
cool.
here.
I've been playing it a lot too. It's basically probably the only console game I'm playing right now. So
Yeah.
but
It-
I love it because I can play it like just because on the Switch I can just play it pretty much at any time, even with all my children's running around like crazy fools. So
Well, I'd like to ask you, what's your initial impressions? As someone who has played these games consistently, right? You've played most of them.
yeah, me, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And I was really super excited because it was basically a tribute to Yellow or whatever, which is great. So I like it. I will say there's a couple things I was surprised about. Like I'm kind of glad that you can go through like the dark tunnels a bunch of times and get more stuff, so I can kind of farm money. So
Yeah.
because right now I've been kind of focused on shiny hunting, and that's just that's the
Oh,
one
man.
thing I'm gonna say. It's kind of a beating, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of a specialized thing. It's not part
Yeah,
of a normal
that's-
gameplay, so
It's a pretty hardcore thing to do.
Yeah, it's like I would call it like a crazy side quest. I mean,
Yeah. But overall, I liked it. Like, I mean, a lot of people were complaining because you didn't fight like the Pokemon in the grass anymore, but I didn't really have any issues. I also didn't have a lot of issues with the controller because I didn't play it that way. I just left it in the Switch the whole time.
Yes.
So on that one, you just press a button. And,
Right.
I mean, sometimes you have to move it a little bit because it's got like the AR kind of thing on it, but
Yeah.
I didn't
Well,
have
I
a lot of
just-
throw issues or anything, so I've just been enjoying it.
I challenge those who dislike the lack of random encounters to tell me how much better or worse their Mount Moon experience was, because
Oh my god, yes.
not having to fight Tron's favorite Zubat, 75
Yes.
pounds
Oh,
to
man.
get through that place. I could walk through there and I'd be like, oh, hey, look, a Zubat. I'm not going to fight it. And you know
I'll walk
what?
around it. Yeah.
There's
yeah.
2 hours of my life that I never lost. I could just get through
Can
that
it
place.
really be called Pokemon though, without fighting as a bad?
Well, that's what I call a quality of life
So-
improvement in that game.
So
Yeah.
I'm not sure that this will ever happen again, but I actually don't mind not having random encounters. Like
Oh,
I wish that was an
absolutely.
option in the game, like whether like if they make a new one, whether you could turn it off or on, because like just going and fighting all the trainers is really what I want to do anyway. And
Right.
so it's like, okay, cool. I don't have to run around this grass and fight
So-
86 Pokemon.
If I could say one bad thing about the whole of the Pokemon series is that it never did a great job at respecting your time.
Sure.
And it's just something that everybody came to expect. Oh, new Pokemon game. Let's grind this shit out, right?
Mhm.
This game, it really takes a step forward, I think, as far as design of the series. And I'll admit, actually, when they announced this game, I was super skeptical. I was like, "Oh man, this is gonna be just a casual version of Yellow for the Let's Go players to get them in on this." And then eventually, I kind of gave in. I was like, "Okay, I'll get it, whatever."
I talked him into it.
Yeah, and I'm loving it. Like, it respects your time so much better.
Yep.
As far as, well, first of all, being able to see the Pokemon in the field, you can only go after what you want.
Yep.
The catching mechanic from Go is actually perfect. I
agree.
think, like,
Yeah.
not having to fight the thing to catch it, it just makes it so much better.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, how do you catch them if you don't randomly encounter Pokemon?
So just like with Pokemon Go, like you just run into it and you throw a Pokeball at it. You line it up in the little shrinking ring.
So you see them just walking around in like the fields?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
run up to it?
It goes into like a battle like it would, but you don't actually fight it. You just throw a Pokeball at it. So that's how you catch them, and then just like in Go, you can send your extra Pokemon to the professor. You get candies for it that can use to buff any of your Pokemon.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, just I think it's very refreshing to play a Pokemon game that we've probably played 100 times in this new way. It's really nice.
Well,
Yeah, and one of the
Go ahead.
go for it. No, you're fine.
No, I was just gonna say, and I've already used my Go to transfer some Pokemon that I can't get
Oh
in the
yeah,
EV
Oh, nice,
version
yeah.
instead of having to trade with somebody. Because who needs friendship and trading? Yeah. No, but
Yeah.
that's neat too. I like that aspect as well. So
Yeah, I'm just surprised that so many people are still skeptical of this game at this point in its life because I mean a lot of people that seem to complain about it are the ones that wanted a brand new Pokemon. But I mean, do they realistically think it'd be done with one in a year to have brand new Pokemon, a new world? No, this is more like a stopgap, kind of like here's a fun game to play between now and the new one. Hey, guess what? It's pretty fun. And as long as you're not just some like, I only play the hardcore ones, I don't see why you can't get like a lot of enjoyment out of this game. And it's probably my favorite version, maybe my second favorite version. It's the original one, and it's got all the familiar levels that I like. And I'd be surprised if they don't make a second Let's Go with silver and gold because it's been selling so well. So
Yeah.
that'd be
To
awesome.
be honest, from my perspective, I would just be shocked if they kind of abandoned the Go model at all. Just, I mean, why would they? It's been so successful for them,
Yeah.
like on the phone and now on the Switch. Apparently, it's doing really well. If they go back to the traditional format, I just would be shocked.
yeah,
Well, I'm
Yeah.
assuming the next game is traditional because they've been talking about it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean, for next year. So
they may add some of this stuff in there though, and kind of integrate some of the better quality of life changes. So
Yeah, I
I
guess we'll
really
see.
hope they do actually.
Yeah,
to be
it's-
honest.
Yeah, this game has like been way more fun to play than I have. I had problems getting through Sun and Moon, X and Y. I mean, I was a little bit younger, so it was easier for me to get through. But I don't know. I feel like this game has been way better paced, and I'm enjoying it way more than I have in a while for one of these games. And I haven't even finished it yet, and I'm still playing it like crazy. I'm doing extra stuff, which is just not like me with those games.
He
Right.
never does extra stuff in Pokemon.
Yeah, so it's just I don't know. I'm just like I'm enjoying it. My girlfriend's enjoying it. We're both playing it together, and like it's a lot of fun. And I just am very surprised there are people that won't play it because it's not one of the main series. I just don't understand that. It's
So did it not add any new Pokemon? Is that why?
like what one maybe right for it?
Well, so that new Melton that you
Yeah.
can get in Go, you can transfer to this,
Mhm.
and so that and its evolution technically count as the two new Pokemon they've added, as well as I think once you go through the game, you can get the Alolan versions of any
Yeah.
of the Kanto
Yeah,
Pokemon.
you can still get they allow the lower ones as well. So
Hey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Trade the regular ones for the alone versions.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a couple of them you can get just playing the game normally. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you can
Mhm.
just trade the person. Yeah, so I have
So
a
that's
low
pretty
end
cool.
Vulpix on my team, so I have an ice
Nice.
Pokemon. Yeah.
And don't worry, Trent, you can still get Mankey in the game too. Your boy.
How can you start with Mankey?
No,
Might as well
no.
cut out the fluff.
Also, can you start with 6 Mankey? Thank you. Okay, bye.
It's a party that never evolved them. But no, it's definitely worth playing. And like I said, those games are, I mean, they're a great Christmas gift for someone that's just got a Switch. And it's a great introduction to Pokemon games if you've never played one before. Or if you have played them like us, I mean, I think it's perfectly, capable of being a fun game for you to play over the Christmas break if you have time. So
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
I
It's a
love
good
it.
one.
Yep.
Ooh, okay. Bort,
Yes.
Tetris Effect.
Tetris Effect. All right. I'm not going to be able to tell you a lot about Tetris that you don't already know.
I want you to explain the gameplay to me, please.
But I will say I'm a lifelong Tetris fan. I'm not great at it, so I'm not an expert by any means. But coming from having originally played the NES and Game Boy versions, those were really, really good versions of that game. Ever since then, there's been numerous versions. Not all of them were great, presentation wise, especially. The DS version that came out in 2006,
It's like
maybe?
this, second year is out, maybe.
That was probably, in my opinion, the best version of Tetris since the Game Boy version.
I agree.
Until this came along. This is just a super chill, really enjoyable version of Tetris. Now, I will say this was actually made to be experienced in VR.
That's what I was going to ask. Is this the VR one? But
Yeah,
I was
it
gonna wait.
is.
Okay.
I don't have a PlayStation VR, so I haven't been able to try that yet. Nakona, I actually need to bring it over and try that.
Yeah.
But even without it, I'm really enjoying it. The presentation is amazing. I actually have the game screen zoomed in because I don't use VR, but otherwise the puzzle area is actually pretty small because you would have the headset right up in front of your,
In
face, right?
Yeah.
So there's all these cool particle effects and stuff going on around the screen as you're dropping blocks. And the coolest part of the presentation, I think, is the music reacts to every single action you make. So moving a block across the panel, it'll add a beat every time you do that.
I can unmute it for a second. I just didn't want to do it while.
Yeah, if you want. In the music itself, it's very eclectic. If I said world music, would you know what that meant?
It's playing right now. So.
Okay. Yeah, I have mine muted, but essentially, you're gonna hear lots of different styles of music, that you would hear from different cultures, different regions of the world. But it's really interesting because as you clear more lines in any stage, the song, I don't know music terminology very well, but it adds to the music. You get more instruments thrown in, or another vocal track or something, and it's just it's such a chill way to spend some time playing a game like this. If you're at all a puzzle game fan, I highly recommend giving this a shot. It's a lot of fun to play and just get lost in.
And
Did you ever play Lumines on the PSP?
I did a little bit, but I never really got into it.
This really reminds me of it, just like the effects and the music thing. And that was one of my favorite games, puzzle games ever. So I'll have to check this out.
Yeah, definitely.
Is
I
it
would
only on
recommend
PlayStation?
it. Nakana, do you-
I think so, but it's been $20 for the last 2 weeks, and I mean it's been selling really well because I think people are starting to hear about how great it is. But as far as I know, yeah, I think it's just the PlayStation 4.
This is also the same one that guy had the world record guy play in VR to see how much better he was at the game. Cause
Really?
yeah, it was a very interesting. I have to go check that out. It was a very interesting video.
Oh, cool.
He did. I'll send you guys a link later, but
Nice.
it was pretty neat. So.
But yeah, like
Yeah.
I said, this game looks really cool. I like, I've played Luminous a little bit, Tron, and I mean, I can see definitely the aesthetics of it for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think people are starting to really pick this up because I think people are starting to spread the word that how this game is. I mean, because most people buying it aren't even buying it for the VR; they just want a great version of Tetris, which, it's probably been I agree with you, Bort. I think the best version is probably the 3 or the DS one. I mean, that game was going for like what, $45-50 at one point, because that was
Yeah,
it was
well after it came out.
yeah, because that was like, it was a great game. It was like Nintendo nostalgia mixed in with just
Tetris.
great version of Tetris. Yeah. So and it had multiplayer, which we did 2 years ago, 2 years ago. Tron, we were playing that.
We played a ton. Yeah. Well, the big deal about that DS one, like back in the day, only one person had to own it, and then it
had the share on it.
Multiplayer.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So we would have like 8 people playing one Tetris game. It was pretty
fun.
incredible.
Yeah. So this looks really great, man. I've been kind of wondering about it because I keep seeing people buy it, and I watch you stream it, and I was like, oh, this does look fun. And I mean, I feel like this would be a great game just to play while you're just chilling or doing whatever. Kind of, if you have like 20 minutes to play something.
Oh,
before you go
definitely.
to work or something. Yeah. So.
Well,
Yeah,
just hearing that music play was pretty relaxing already. So
Yeah, I
Well,
really recommend it.
Yeah, and I said $20. It's a pretty good deal right now. So
Mm-hmm.
cool deal.
good deal. Yep.
Very
I like it.
nice. And you got a little bit Red Dead now, Ron? You ready for that one?
Yeah.
I've never heard of this game. What is this?
Yeah, just like Tetris, this game probably needs no introduction. All anybody's heard about. Full disclosure, I have not beaten it yet. I think I've put in a good 20, 30 hours, which, could mean a lot of things. Could mean I've barely played it, touched it at all, as far as what there is to see. So far so good. It's definitely a little more fluid, a little more pace better than the last one, because that was kind of a big stone you could throw at the first Red Dead, was just how much of a slog it was before you really got into that open world and were able to do whatever you wanted, essentially. They do a little bit better job about this one, though it's still Rockstar, so they're going to handhold you through every, how do you skin this deer? How do you pick up this flower? How do you fish? Like every possible nuance the game has, it's going to have like a mission for it, and you're probably going to be forced to go through it. But, I'm a diehard Rockstar fan. I think I've played probably every single one of their games, since the PS1 era.
Wow.
And this one definitely holds up. I think that it's getting a lot of praise right now, as it should. I think it's a phenomenal game. The detail is just staggering. Just little things like the way the thistles are moving on the grass and the detail on the horses. It's pretty incredible. There's a couple issues I do have, and this was always my great fear with the Western game, is how do you keep things exciting when you're riding a horse from A to B?
Yeah.
And the first Red Dead, their answer was, kind of whatever. We're going to have somebody ride with you, and we're going to talk to you. So it was like, basically, it was like, that's the story. We're gonna narrow down the cutscenes and keep most of the story kind of between the transport. This one, they do a better job of like, you'll just be, galloping down the road, I guess, and then all of a sudden, like, somebody will try to ambush you, like just regular horse thieves or something like that. They won't have anything to do with your mission or your story, and they do a great job with that. Like, there's all kinds of things that just little happenings in the world. Like, you'll see somebody with a twisted ankle, and you can either go up to them and rob them, which is, I'm sure, what most people do, or you can like nurse them back to health, like give them whiskey, and then maybe they'll give you like a treasure map, or maybe they'll get up and rob you, which has both happened to me.
That's awesome.
It definitely gives you like almost a shoot first mentality, I think, because way more bad stuff has happened to me from just helping strangers than rewards. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic. I feel like this one, more than the other Rockstar games, really wants you to strike a balance between. It's almost like the Mass Effect method of Renegade, Paragon. Are you going to be? You're definitely kind of a bad dude, but you can either be kind of a rugged hero.
They're encouraging you to not be so much of an outlaw.
Yeah, like there's ways like you can. So for example, when you're robbing stuff, you're holding somebody up at gunpoint, and there's lots of options to where the guy's being aggressive, and your instinct's probably just to shoot him because he's going for his gun. But you can also try to diffuse the situation with conversation or with like an action, like maybe like I gave this guy whiskey, like I mentioned earlier, and it calmed him down. So it's like that's neat.
But an outlaw with sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you have I don't know what it's called, to be honest, like the Paragon Renegade meter, but the good side will go up when you perform a good action. And if you were to just like go on a rampage, obviously, that seems to be when mostly happens, is if you just shoot somebody for no reason, then you'll become, I guess, more of a bad dude.
Yeah.
So that adds a little intrigue. I think, in my personal opinion, and this may not be popular, I think this game really needed a fast travel option. Despite all I
fast
just
travel?
Well, this is the stagecoach,
not-
right? So that's like the
Yes.
fastest travel.
But you're riding in it the whole time.
Oh, so here's how it is. Don't think of it like Fallout or Oblivion, which is kind of
Yeah.
how I would expect fast travel to work.
Not teleporting.
Yeah. To explain to the audience, it's like wherever you're at, you can just fast travel to any location or town that you've already visited, as long as you're not fighting anybody. The way this one works is you have to ride towards the nearest stagecoach, or you have to be in your camp, and you have to like go read a map or something like that. But not to mention you have to buy that, like you have to know to get it, which I didn't. I had to look it up on Google, and I know a lot of other people did too. So basically, long story short, a lot of times you'll fast travel to the mission spot, you'll talk to the guy, you'll initiate the mission, you'll do it, and then you'll end up at the end in the middle of nowhere. So like you'll be in like some mountain. So then basically you're like, well, there's nothing near. What happens to me in a lot of cases is there's nothing near me that I could do. I think what Rockstar wanted you to do was, while you're riding back to the stagecoach or back to your camp, they wanted you to like, I'm gonna hunt some game, I'm gonna fish, or like do a bounty or two. But it doesn't happen as organically as I think it needs to in order to really kind of keep the flow of the game going. So it's like that's one little issue. But overall, I mean, obviously, we're talking about, like we're picking hairs here. It's like 9 out of 10, or is it not 5 out of 10? It's still a great game.
Yeah. But I've heard the other thing I've heard a lot of people complain about are the controls and how they're a little archaic, and how some of the buttons, like to get on your horse, is the same as pulling your gun out.
That's awesome.
So it's like,
yesterday James was talking about loving this game. It was his game of the year, I believe, and he showed a clip. We had a clip of him, and he was just trying. It said press triangle to ask the guy to get in the stagecoach, and he pressed it, and that's the same button as like choke a motherfucker or something. So it just runs straight up to that guy and just chokes him out. And he's like, "No, that's not it. It said press triangle to get on the stagecoach." So yeah, that sounds sucky.
I've always like, that was kind of the problem. It's like even older games like Gears of War, like I've always hated that cover was the same as run. So if you're trying to run, you sometimes jump into cover. It's like,
Sure.
Why are these the same buttons?
You know what
And-
fixes that?
I guess a PC controller.
PC, because I mean you got so many buttons, right?
Us casual console
Is Red
guys.
Dead, is it out on PC?
No, and that's the problem.
No.
So I want to play this game so
All right.
bad, but I'm being stubborn. I'm gonna wait and see if they'll release it like a year later, like GTA.
So I thought, this has been out since when did this come out?
October 28th.
Okay, so it's been almost 2 months.
Mhm.
I think as time's gone, people have actually gotten more critical of this game.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
The online did not help.
Yeah, the online did not help. For some reason, they can't seem to get the launches right for these things. But besides that, I heard a lot of game critics talking how, I guess they would get so bogged down in the minutia of side stuff that it actually makes them lose interest in the game completely. Like they don't even want to go and do the story anymore. They just drop the game, and they're like, "I have no interest in going back to this." So, would you say is pacing a problem, Tron, or
Well,
is it
so
kinda-
here's the.
It's just
here's
so
the
up to
problem
you,
with
right?
Rockstar game. Yeah, like Rockstar game is like you almost can't blame them, because I don't think if you were to do nothing but play the story missions,
Mm-hmm.
you would not think pacing was an issue at all, because every
Right.
mission I've played has been exciting. I've been interested in the characters, interested in the story. And a lot of times when I start off on, like, say, a GTA, that's what I'll do, is I'll just go straight through the story, because in general it unlocks everything and you get all your money, and then you backtrack and you do all the side stuff, which I think is probably how you should treat Red Dead the same way.
Yeah.
Because it's daunting, it's overwhelming, there's so much stuff to do. And a problem I have, and this is just me personally, not necessarily a flaw with the game, is that this game is so intricate and there's so much depth that a lot of times I forget how to do something. Like if for example, fist fighting, like I'm always running around my horse shooting things.
Yeah.
And so it could be hours before I'm forced into like another fist fight where I wouldn't pull out my gun and just shoot. So this happened to me in a mission the other day where I was, the mission required me to fight somebody with my fists, and I had no idea what to even press, and I was just getting wailed on the whole time.
It's funny because Tim was saying the same thing. He had the exact same issue that you're having right now because it'd been so long since he'd done it. He didn't know how to do it anymore. He had to look it up.
Yeah, that's rough.
You fail, I assume.
Yeah, he was getting frustrated. He had to go online and figure out how to do it because like, am I just doing it wrong? He's like, oh, I don't remember how to do this part, and he had to go look it up and just stuff like that. It's just like Tron said, it's been so long since he did it. He just didn't remember how to do it, and like it's a really cool thing to have all these game mechanics, but if they're not being consistently used, it's kind of
can make it rough. But that's kind of an issue. Just to take a little bit away from that, is any of those games, man. Skyrim, Fallout, they all have like all that kind of stuff. Now, this is the first one I've seen where you have so many like you can go skin stuff, hunt. Like there's a lot more in this. I agree with that, but like I almost never get through a full game of Skyrim because I'm just like off doing side things, you know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah.
And I'm torn myself on how to judge a game like this because obviously I'm sounding really critical because it's mostly been bad stuff I've talked about, and you could go on and on about stuff that kind of bothered you or just little gameplay quirks that you wish were different. But the fact is, it's like by having all this depth and having all these mechanics, there's just like this could be a game that you could probably play for a whole year. Mm-hmm. And you wouldn't necessarily get bored of the gameplay loop because even though I'm not doing all this fist fighting, for all I know, there's like all these fight clubs and stuff that you could go do, and that could be like a really big component in somebody else's like playthrough. So what I might complain about, somebody else might like really love the controls or the way that the fighting feels. Yeah. So it's tough to.
It's almost like it's really important for you to play the game how you're comfortable playing it, so that you set your own pace, so that you don't get bored for it. Because if you try to go into this like a completionist and do every little thing, you're gonna end up hating it,
or just never finishing it.
Or never finishing
definitely.
it. Yeah.
And personally, if I was like a professional game reviewer, this is the type of game I would hate.
Yeah.
Because I would have to review all of it, to give it a fair shake. And God, that could be miserable, because this is a big game.
Especially thinking about like the online that is added, that's a big huge mess right now too. It's like, how do you rate that? Does that count towards your final score when you're making this game? I mean,
no.
So no.
And that I haven't even touched.
Yeah.
But if it's I do remember this, and it looks really good in retrospect. But I remember playing GTA Online and thinking it was a big, pile of and it's like this is never gonna last.
But
and then of course, now it's like one of the most successful multiplayer, games.
Great.
Yeah.
I don't know what y'all are talking about, but
it was bad when it came out.
I was gonna say, to be honest though, they had a year and a half to fix it before we finally got a copy. So. So I probably didn't have to experience the same things you guys did.
It looked pretty bad when it came out, and I think this is kind of the same thing. They're masking it under the fact that it's the beta of the online, but
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
well,
it's like okay.
If I were them, I think it would have been more clever to wait like a year and a half for maybe the PC version, and then release the online then, so that you get all these people that are bored with it to jump back in. It's like a reason to keep playing. Yeah, and then maybe they'll only play multiplayer and buy all the Rockstar points.
They could have survived like 2 more months easily with people still playing the main game. I mean, like people that finished it are in the minority at this point. Like most people are playing this game thoroughly and they're not done with it yet. So they could have waited to release it online until they're a little bit better off releasing it, And I know people are, getting disgruntled with the game because of the online that may not have really had a problem with it until then. I don't know. I mean, I've played very little of it. I've had a lot of interaction with people that have played it on a daily basis. And like I said, the main things those are the things I hear about, the controls in the online being really bad. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, game looks fantastic. I mean, I'm sure it's great. I've heard the main character is really interesting. I know the end of the game, I don't want to spoil anything for you. It sounds like it's got really cool twists because, where I work, I get to hear all about that, whether I want to or not. And
I haven't talked about the story much, but I have heard that too, that there's a big twist, and I'm really curious to see how it goes because from my end of things, this is a prequel to Red Dead Redemption, so I
Yeah.
know what happens to the majority of these characters.
Right.
So
Yeah.
when you say twist, I'm really excited to see like what that could possibly be because I'm definitely not at that point yet to where I even have a
You're
clue what it
discovering
could
that.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait till you
But-
get to that part so you can tell me all about it.
Yeah. I'll make the YouTube video for you.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Cool deal. Well, cool. That's it, right? Everybody talked about. What
Yeah,
they
we'll
played
wrap
this
up
week?
Red Dead.
Yeah, we could get into our end of the year stuff.
Yeah, we can actually get into the actual podcast part. You know, that
Yeah.
we're
An
supposed to
hour
talk
later.
about. That's okay. Hey. Yesterday's was 2.5 hours. That
Nice.
was pretty long. All right, cool. Well, let's talk about the end of the year stuff. So, same format as the past two. We're going to talk about best game of 2018 and move on to the more sad news, and then come back with some 2019 hype. So,
All right.
let's start with Iscard on your best game of 2018.
Well, if anyone knows me, even for about 10 minutes of their lives, they'll know my favorite series is Dragon Quest. So I was very, very, very excited about Dragon Quest 11 coming out. That was, something I've been waiting for a long time because the last one that we got was more of like a DS multiplayer, not quite the same traditional style, which, granted, Bort and I played 9 a ton. Even
Oh, yeah.
David, even old David played
Oh
that
my
game for half
gosh.
a minute.
I did play that. I had the book and everything, man.
I remember you had to buy the book because you couldn't beat the first boss.
Yeah, I was like, I don't play this game enough. I'm gonna need the book, so that's what I got.
Yeah, so 11 was pretty different, and it was more like the traditional style, which 8 had come out on the PS2. That was like the last real one we got, which came out in 2006 maybe.
Yeah.
So it'd been a minute since we've gotten a real Dragon Quest, and 8 was very popular mainly because it came with the Final Fantasy 12 demo at the time. But people found out it was a really great game in its own. And I think Dragon Quest XI continued that. But it's, those games, Dragon Quest, are really well known for being very traditional RPGs, JRPGs. 11's, added more stuff like the skill point system that you're looking at right now where you can.
I was going to comment on that. It looks pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, and it opens up as you get further in. But yeah, like basically as you level up, you get skill points. You can level up. Oh, I like using the spear with this character. I'm going to make it stronger. Or, oh, I like using this weapon and this skill type. So I can level that up, which is very cool. The game's got a really great story. It's got a really, I think, interesting plot twist, which, I think it's hard to do these days in JRPGs, but they've got a lot of cool story aspects to it. The game is cut into 3 distinct pieces that are all very interesting. It's got a great soundtrack. I think the same guy's done all the music in those games, but, he always does a great job with that. And like I said, the game actually, once you finish it, you've got about 30 more hours of gameplay just with the epilogue, which I think is very cool. Because I thought I was done and I had another 3 weeks of playing it, which I was like, man, that's awesome. So, I don't know. I just, to me, it's what every JRPG needs to be, which is well-paced, interesting story, great characters, I guess accessible combat, something I want to do for hours without getting bored of it.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm actually still playing it. I tend to play JRPGs pretty slow, especially these really long ones. But yeah, this is just the epitome of classic JRPG, and for anybody that's never played one, I think it's a perfect way to get into it.
Yeah, and it's it's very accessible for anyone that plays JRPGs, or even if you don't really play them. It's just I think it's got an interesting style, and of course you can tell the artist is the same guy that does Dragon Ball. The characters always look kind of comparable to that, so you have some familiarity with that right away.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I just think, if you're looking to get into JRPGs, I always thought Dragon Quest was a great one because it kind of gives you the best of all that JRPGs typically do, which is, like I said, good combat, good music, good story, good characters, engaging gameplay. Like I never felt bored in playing that game at any point, which, it might be a little biased because I like those games so much, but I played through a lot of RPGs and it's harder and harder as I get older to get through them or really enjoy them like I used to. But this game was luckily something I could just, I sink 2 months into without even
Took you back to the good old days.
Yeah, exactly. And I still play it. I've done everything in this game. I have a platinum trophy, but I still like playing it. And I'm glad it came.
How long did that take?
90 hours, I think. It took me quite a while, but
Oh my God.
it didn't feel long at all. Yeah.
This this generation has not been kind to my limited time to play games.
Yeah, I mean, the game though just takes like probably. I mean, it doesn't take that much. I mean, it's not super long, but again, like I said, I think it's a great game to play. You know, just casually if you want. I don't know. I think it's really good. And again, if you're kind of getting into that genre, or if you haven't played, a lot of people haven't played JRPGs in a while because they're playing The Witcher, the Western RPGs these days. It's kind of a good way to come back because Final Fantasy is so different than it was before. A lot of the old series that you played from, they don't even exist.
It's unrecognizable now.
Exactly, yeah. So this game is what's up?
How did this do?
Yeah,
sales wise.
Sales wise, it did pretty well. I know. I don't know the numbers, but I remember reading it was like the 8th best-selling game in September when it came out. But
that's not too shabby for
pretty good.
JRPG.
Well, on Amazon,
I think it looks really visually appealing, and I hope it did well because I feel like now it's just Dragon Quest and Persona. Like those are the only kind of two AAA JRPGs that even exist anymore.
Well, Amazon released their best-selling games of the year, and it was on that list. I think it was like 28 or something. It's pretty far down, but it was in pretty good categories. There's people in there.
You probably had to go through like 4 models of Call of Duty.
Well, yeah, you had to go through every
Fortnite,
Nintendo game that's ever come out on the Switch before. There was like that was the top 10 basically, but. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, and it's helpful that it came out for PC as well, and it's going to come out for the Switch, which is really good because I think it needs more exposure. But I feel like, again, if you have not played a JRPG in a while, or you think you don't like them anymore, this is a good chance for you to remember how good they can be. So
cool.
Yep.
I like the aesthetic. Just watching the video it looks great to me. But
yeah, art design's very good in that game.
Jiggly, quit making plans while we're talking.
All right, cool. So that was Dragon Quest 11, right?
Yep.
All right, Matt. Game of the year 2018 for you?
Sorry, I'm laughing at Jiggly. My game of 2018 is obviously Fallout 76.
Oh man, boy!
Wow,
Woo!
I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah,
reading the wrong line, board.
Hashtag PC Master Race. Right.
No, my game of 2018 is God of War. I am not copying the Game Awards. I just decided
I was gonna say real original, but no.
Wow.
So this game was pretty early in 2018 also, but I just remember after it came out, every day I got off work, I could not wait to get home and play it. And I didn't do everything in this game, mostly because I was pretty enthralled with the main quest. I did plenty of side stuff, but I really wanted to get through and play it. So this is actually one of the optional fights if you're watching the video.
It's a Valkyrie fight, right?
Yeah, one of the.
Yeah, I was about to say I remember this.
It was the only thing I had recorded, and I didn't have it installed on my PS4 still. So I was like, yeah, I'll just throw that in there. But anyways, yeah, I love this game. I think it was a great evolution for the series. Not that I disliked, the first 3 games, but just where games have gone, kind of this open world exploratory, heavy narrative and dialogue sort of thing. Like it just did those things so well, and the combat was really fun and engaging. Gosh, yeah, like there's not a lot to say that hasn't already been said about this game, but I'm really excited for the follow up to this one.
This game always kind of remind me of what Resident Evil 4 did for Resident Evil. Like those games were really solid, but I didn't need an evolution as far as their gameplay goes to reach the next level as far as being a huge series. And I think God of War did the same type of thing where, 1 through 3 are great games. They're very fun, great. The combat, there's not much to complain about overall in those games.
Mm-hmm.
But, this game, I think, took the next step and you made it, like you said, kind of more suited for gamers these days that like to play the way they play games. The pacing especially feels that way. As well as the narrative. But yeah, I mean, I think that this may set the bar again for action games and storytelling in games. And you might see more of these types of games, or maybe this, I guess maybe the direction this game is going as far as the storytelling goes. I think you'll see more of that with games than when they change their series as well, because they'll want to follow suit based on how well this game sold. And clearly the critical response it's gotten even to this day. I feel like these days, I think of Breath of the Wild, or I think of Red Dead, like you were talking about, Tron, or maybe it was Bort, but they start kind of slowly criticizing it more and more as I was like, oh, actually this I didn't like this about the game, but I think God of War has really not had any of that. I feel like
It
everyone
held
had-
its own,
it's
like
held it.
10 months after it came out.
No one's. I mean, I don't really hear many complaints about it. Even now, like there's just not a lot of people that are like, this game wasn't as great. It's like, well, this game was even better than I expected. I want to play it again,
And
Yeah.
I hate to get to like industry talk in regards to this game, but I have to say the fact that they came right out and said, we're not planning DLC for this game. This is it. Here's your game.
Yeah.
It's interesting in this game
Refreshing.
where
Refreshing.
yeah,
absolutely.
every game that comes out, it's like, oh, I wasn't totally satisfied with this experience, but let me just wait a couple months till the DLC comes out. Then I'll feel like I'll get more out of it.
Yeah.
You don't have that with this. Like, this is a full package, I guess, if you want to call it anything. And it really feels like it. Like, they spent every bit amount of time they needed to on this game, and it really, really shows.
Yep. And
I think this is a unique kind of thing we're seeing with games is God of War and I guess Resident Evil, and you could argue maybe the Mario when it jumped to Mario 64. It almost changed genres when this game was made, because I don't think anyone would consider this a stylish action game, a la Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, which is
No.
what I would consider the original God of War. Like it was 100% in that
Flashy.
genre. This is more of like a nuanced, like character-driven, almost like a Last of Us. Or it's funny to say that about Kratos. It's something
Yeah.
I never thought a sentence I'd ever utter, which makes me almost wonder if this was always the intent, or if this was like they were making another game, and then at some point a light bulb turned on, and they're like, well, what if we just make this God of War? Like, we're already making this Norse mythology game. Let's just toss Kratos in there. Because
Everything
really,
I was gonna say, everything I've heard about this game, like, this was because if you're familiar with the series at all, Cory Balrog, he directed the second game, which most people regard as the best one. He came back to the series for this, and this was always intended to be a God of War game.
it's fascinating, because I feel like if someone were to play like marathon through the whole series, their heads would explode
Be
when they start playing
confused.
this one. It's so
Yeah.
different now.
It is. But again, I think just such a step in the right direction that it really makes me excited to play these games and
Yeah.
see where they go with it.
And one last thing I'll say, there is a moment in this game, because for the majority of it, I was not convinced it was a sequel.
Mhm.
I thought it was a reboot of some kind, because there was so little reference to the old games.
Yeah.
But when there finally is a reference to it, it's an awesome moment. Like, it's
Yes.
great.
Yeah, it ties everything in beautifully.
Cool deal.
great game.
Yeah, awesome game for sure. Ron,
All right, so my next
game
all
of the
right.
year.
So my game of the year, and mostly because all the other good ones were taken,
Mhm.
I'm gonna do Spider-Man, because that's probably the most fun I've had playing a game this year. While I by no means think it's better than God of War or even Dragon Quest, because I think Spider-Man has the issue that just came up with God of War. It does have the DLC, like the fatigue at the end, where it's like, wait a minute, why are there like 3 DLC story packs at the end of this game? Those probably could have been tossed in. But the way they get Spider-Man right in this game is really something phenomenal. And they've kind of gotten Spider-Man right before. Like, nobody's going to complain about the PS2 version or even those old PS1 versions that came pretty close.
Yeah.
But just the way it feels in this one, like they must have spent thousands of man hours perfecting this, because it looks like it looks better than like a Marvel movie. When you're in it, and obviously it feels like you're actually Spider-Man. And as a big lover of the Arkham City games, this is just like a dream come true, because it's basically those games, just like faster, a little better pace, because you're not going slow, you're not stealthy, you're zooming around, you're Spider-Man. And the amount of villains and characters and stuff from the comics they stuff into this game, obviously all at like a high AAA production value, is pretty impressive. I just think that it's something everybody should play. It's nice because it's kind of like God of War, where it's an isolated experience. It's, maybe 20 hours to do everything. It's something you can beat in a couple sit-ins, which, unlike it seems most games right now, Red Dead will take probably 200 hours to do everything, and it can get overwhelming. But you can easily see everything Spider-Man offers in a nice sit-in.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say that at the time of this coming out, I had to decide it was either this or Dragon Quest, and the weeb in me won out, and I had to go with Dragon Quest. But I'm a big Marvel fan, and I've enjoyed the Spider-Man games. You mentioned the PS1 games which are actually pretty decent for that era.
They were.
But then the Spider-Man 2, the movie game, everybody kind of hails as the best Spider-Man game until this. So there was a lot of comparisons going on between that old one and this one. And a lot of it was just the freedom of the free swinging. And of course, they can do that today so much better than they could back then. So I think the comparisons are apt, but this is like so much more than that from what I've heard.
Yeah, this game really captures the feeling that a lot of us had when we first played the PS2, or just kind of like the freedom and how exhilarating it was to just zoom around as Spider-Man. Unlike the Batman ones are a little more slowed down, right? Like, and I keep comparing it to the Batman games because it is essentially a clone. The way you fight, the way you run around the cities and like fight villains and side quests, it wants to be the Arkham Asylum games, but it's just like a very polished, kind of spin-off of those games,
Right.
Which is by no means, a detriment at all.
Yeah, and this game, so you're not getting the full experience though, unless you buy the DLC, right? Like you get an ending, but it's not really closed.
Oh, you are. I should retrade my steps because you definitely like it has a very satisfying final boss and ending. Like the story definitely concludes. What doesn't happen is, like, for example, there's the Black Cat character that a lot of people really like. She has these side quests through the game where they're basically like collectathons, and then once you get to the end of it, it's basically like a phone message or a to be continued, and then that her quest, like her kind of like side quest boss fight or side quest mission, is the DLC. It's the first DLC pack, and stuff like that kind of really rubbed me the wrong way because I didn't know that I was going to be kind of shortchanged after collecting all these things.
Right.
So it's like, and I have to imagine the other DLC. I think there's like 3, which is always a bad sign when you hear about 3 so soon to a game's release. But there's so much content. It's tough to complain.
Yeah, it's just, I guess if you want to keep playing, because like you, Tron, and I'm sure Bort's the same way. Like I sometimes prefer games that are like 20 hours at most, so I can just get through it, enjoy it, and if I want to do more stuff, I'll play it more if I choose to. But I'd be cool with just beating the game and moving on. But if I like the game enough, I can just keep purchasing. Like it's $20 if you're doing 3 DLCs. I don't think it's terrible, and I know
That's
they
pretty
do
good.
suits, if I remember right, which I know is a big part of the game.
Oh, there's tons. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
so-
give you so many free ones. You can't harm them, the developers, for wanting to make a buck or two off some other ones, because I mean
Yeah.
they give you like 80 or something ridiculous like for free just in the game.
I think
Wow.
people forget. I think I'm not to go on a tangent here, but I think people forget that $60 you're getting. This game is probably worth $60. You're getting a lot of good content, and to me, DLC isn't always required. It can be supplementary where you're getting you don't have to buy it, but if you want to keep playing it, hey, you know what, $20, might be worth doing. And then I don't know. I just think that this game is a really good example of something that doesn't need it. But hey, if you love the game more and you want to get more than your 20 hours, it's something that you might want
Support
to
the developer type
I-
thing. Yeah.
I think this is another case study, and we've had millions of them at this point, of how to kind of not handle DLC if you're a publisher. Because me personally, if I had never known that DLC existed, I would never have had a complaint about any of the missions or anything like that. Because the game itself doesn't, it's not like an Assassin's Creed game, not the name drop I played a while ago, where it's like, oh, you go to a mission flag and then they tell you need to, like, it basically shoots you into the store to buy the DLC.
Oh.
It's like, yeah,
Right.
it's like, that's terrible. Spider-Man is nothing like that whatsoever. Like everything has an ending. There's never a hit X to go to store moment. And I think but the publishers could have easily just held off for like 6 months. All right. It didn't
Yeah.
have to be within like 60 days. It's like, hey, by the way, three DLC packs right here. Or I'm sure it was only one. I'm sure the other 2 were staggered. But people always get a little touchy when stuff comes out that close because I think it's just human nature to wonder. It's like, wait a minute, was I shortchanged here? Was this on the disc and you just cut it out?
Yeah.
and you're gonna charge me for it.
Especially when they announce the first one before the game even comes out, like what it is and the date.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well. But yeah, I get it. I just think that the game, like you said, is perfectly fine on its own, and it's just again, if you want to keep playing it, $20 wasn't I think it's pretty reasonable, and Insomniac has always done a great job with all their franchises, I think, and I feel like sometimes that's one of those developers you wouldn't mind giving 20 extra bucks to because they've done such a good job with the games that everything I played that they've made I've just thoroughly enjoyed. So it wouldn't really bother me too much to do that if I want to keep playing it.
Yeah, and great game. I recommend it to everybody. It's nice and short, and I'm sure it'll be on sale a million times. And the boss battles, probably the best boss battles I've seen in the game in a long while, and that's kind of my takeaways from that.
I just want to say that we've given a lot of people good reasons to buy a PS4 because those are all PS4 consoles.
Yeah,
That's crazy, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Except Dragon Quest is on the PC, but still only PS4 right now. It's on console wise.
God, what a beating! Console wars indeed. Like it's not even close.
It wasn't even planned like that. This is what we like playing this year.
No, it's great. Yeah, I mean PS4 and then Switch. Okay, you don't need the other
For sure.
You don't even need an Xbox anymore since most of the Xbox games I can now play on my PC. I'm in.
That's sadly true.
They're like, hey, we're also buy it for Xbox and get on PC. All right, this is.
I mean,
that is a company who has thrown in the towel. That's what that is.
well, so don't mean to get on this tangent, but if you watch the Game Awards when Jeff Keighley was interviewing Phil Spencer, like Phil Spencer actually said, this wasn't our best year on live TV. It's like, whoa, dude, you're supposed to be the hype man.
That's funny. Oh man. Okay. Well, we could talk about people who weren't ready to talk on our disappointing section later because I got some good ones too. I'll just list off my games. We've already heard them like the other two podcasts, but just in case y'all want to haze me or not haze me for these. Far Cry 5 was mine for this year.
Interesting.
And then and like my runner-up, because I really, really enjoyed it and just mostly wanted people to go look at it, was Pathfinder Kingmaker. As one of those
I don't know what that is.
Pillars of Eternity.
Do you want you to look it up?
Right, Pillars of Eternity. I don't know if you know what Pillars of Eternity is, or
I've heard of it.
Or Tyranny. It's like a party-based RPG.
Okay.
6-player.
Yeah.
You have like 6 people in your party. Style game, and it was a really good. It has a lot of systems in it, like a kingdom builder. Like you can build an entire kingdom and manage that. And I don't. It was pretty cool. So, anyways, those were mine for 2018. So
Nice.
And like I told everybody before, want to know why Far Cry 5 was my favorite game of the year?
I'm about to ask you why.
Well, because I don't have access to God of War, Spider-Man, or Red Dead.
Damn.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Hey, that gives us
So wait.
variety, right?
yeah.
Not to get you off the hook so easy. How does it compare to like Far Cry 3 and 4, which a lot of people also would consider like game of the year contenders when those came out? Like, what's better about this one?
I've always liked Far Cry, but my favorite part about Far Cry is it not taking itself too seriously. Just like Just Cause. Oh my god, I need to get a copy of that, but we can talk about that later. But I just like my favorite part this year in particular is just the animal interactions and how they just run people over or just tackle you. But no, I really like the game. It's an open world game, my favorite thing that always puts a game at the top for me. So even if I had played these other ones, I might have still picked it, is co-op. Can't do that in Spider-Man. You can't do that in God of War, so those are already lower on my list automatically. And that's just because I'm a different kind of person. I'm like, I want to play with somebody, not solo. So
that game, I guess, is a very interesting ending. Did you finish that game?
The Far Cry 5?
Yeah.
I have not finished it. I think I got 3 zones done out of I think it's 4 or 5. I can't remember.
Well, the ending is pretty crazy. You should.
Well, I was gonna say, Ubisoft always does like a follow-up in between main series entries for Far Cry. So 3 had Blood Dragon, 4 had Primal, and they announced 5's follow-up, which is actually a continuation of the story of 5. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you're right. By the way,
Okay.
I loved Blood Dragon too. That was a great one.
Yeah, and I feel like Far Cry 5 has some very interesting DLC, like because again, this is supplementary because it's got nothing to do with the game. It's just bizarre. Like here's a sci-fi version of some craziness, and
Yeah,
here's a
really?
Vietnam Yeah, like they have three distinct
Uh,
DLCs. There's like a zombie one. There's like a space one, and like a
Aren't they doing the? Didn't they just talk about doing the post-apocalyptic one as well? Wasn't that
Yeah, I
Far
think-
Cry? Yeah.
That's the one I was talking
Yeah, that's the
about.
next one, right?
Yeah,
Oh, is
which
that's
Continues the story.
that's why you gotta get to the ending. It's crazy.
It
That
actually
game-
ties into that. Okay, I
It
thought that was
does.
just
Yeah.
it
random
does
shit.
tie into that.
Okay, well then
No,
that
it's
does make
definitely
it
not
crazy.
random.
Okay.
No. You gotta finish it just because
All right.
the ending's awesome. So
Okay, cool. Yeah. So anyway, so I enjoy that game, and I'm still working on it. It's just I'm pretty ADD, so I switch between games all the time.
Well, it's a big game too.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Let's move on to most surprising news, and just FYI, this may also tie into your most disappointing, depending on the news. But let's start with most surprising news for Ascard.
yeah. So watching the Game Awards, which I was at work, but I did hear a lot of the cool announcements for that game. And one of the ones I saw that was really surprising was some of the DLC they had for Smash Brothers. And I'm sure, did you guys see that? What they announced for that by chance?
Of course.
Okay, well, I thought it was very cool that they announced that Joker from Persona 5 was going to be in that game, which, I watched the trailer. I was like, wow, that is very cool. I would have never in a million
What?
years get that.
Came out of nowhere.
Did you
Yeah,
see
and
my
And yet it's
comment?
such a good fit.
It is.
Did you
yeah.
see my comment? When I saw Joker, I was just like, "What from Batman? Oh my gosh!"
No, not from Batman. The cooler version. But I thought that was really unique, and to be honest, it makes sense to me because, Persona, like Tron was saying earlier, is a AAA RPG series. It's huge in Japan right now, and to be
Got
honest,
really big here too.
it's gotten big here, yeah. And this to me might be the chance that hey, we might see a Persona, 5 Crimson or whatever they're gonna do. on
Yes.
Switch,
Yeah.
which
I
would be
was going to
very
get
cool.
there if you were.
Yeah,
It's- that's got to be their segue into Switch mode or Switch port.
which that would be awesome because Persona, if nothing else, makes very good. I would call director cuts or whatever their second version of their games. They always add a ton
They've
of
done that.
content.
Ever since 3. So we had
3.
FES for 3, Golden for 4, and the supposed Crimson for 5. It's
Yeah.
just what people are calling it.
And not to mention that the next game in the main series of the Shin Megami Tensei games will be a Switch exclusive as well. So
Yes.
I mean, they're getting a lot of love from Atlas on this series. And to be honest, like I said, I think it makes sense. I know it sounds crazy, but I think it's not too crazy for me. I think it's like, wow, that's a really popular character right now from a really popular game series that will probably see them some life on the Switch at some point. So I was
And as soon as I saw he was announced, I was like, he's going to fit in great.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Seems like the perfect Smash character. Sometimes you'll see a character gets announced and you're like, oh, all right. Like, that's going to look weird next to Kirby or something like that.
Piranha Plant.
But it just makes me
Oh,
think,
boy.
what are the other 4 characters? I mean, what I have now, I'm at this point, I have no clue. Like, I could have
Oh,
It
guessed.
could
Are we
be
doing this?
anything.
Are we speculating?
No, I don't want to speculate because it could be. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if I saw Master Chief at this point. I don't even know anymore. So, I mean, it could just be anyone, and I think that's just again, it was very
Sora.
surprising. Yes, well, I mean, that's 1,000 people ask for that. My point is, I just think that you could, I just was floored by it, and I love the trailer. If you haven't seen the announcement trailer, they had a game trailer or Gamescom or whatever, the Game Awards. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's very cool and worth watching for sure, whether you're a Persona fan or not. I just realized, it was smart of them to do it on the day of Smash's release because people
Yeah.
are buying that fighter pass like
Yeah.
crazy. The attach rate probably went up double because they're like, oh, I know the first character and that's awesome. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so
See,
I was
Jiggly
really
agrees with me. It'll be Sora.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, that's we'll see, I guess, but I wouldn't be surprised at this point. I don't even know anymore. So
No, that's
that was
cool.
mine. Yep.
All
Very
right.
cool.
Bort.
So, yeah, my most surprising news is that Sony will not be at E3 2019. Like, to me, that's pretty huge.
This is a
E3 is,
shocker.
yeah, E3 is easily the biggest industry show every year, and we already saw Nintendo like pseudo pull out. they always still had a presence at the show. They would do their directs, their Nintendo Direct videos, which would just air, during E3 week.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would have, they would have their booth where they would like to do their Treehouse Live stuff from to show off some things that they announced in the directs. So even though they've they pulled their keynote, I should say, they pulled their keynote from E3. They always still had a presence. Next year, Sony's like, nope, we're not going to be there at all, like at all.
Mm-hmm.
So for one of the big three to just pull out completely, I think is surprising and maybe a little telling that the industry might actually start moving away from these sorts of trade shows in favor for,
Individual.
individual, not even stage shows, like digital announcements. Like I think
Well, it's cheaper.
very much cheaper for any
You know-
company to go, the digital route. It was surprising that Nintendo did it first, seeing as how they can't get
Those
online
internet
shit, right?
haters. Yeah.
Yeah.
They probably just didn't
But,
have money for the Wii U to do it.
Right. But yeah, so
I think this is really fascinating. It's because if you look back at E3s, Sony made their gains in E3 2013 when they basically went head to head with the Xbox One and the PS4 reveal. And they were waiting until Microsoft revealed their price tag. And then inevitably got the call from the CEO. It's like, all right, you go down to $399 or whatever it was at the time. And they were only able to do that because of that environment, because of E3.
Right.
Mhm.
And they also were able to cut together a video, and I'll never forget this because I thought it was genius. This was the time when Xbox One didn't have a disc; it was going to be all digital, and you couldn't share games. And so they supercut a video of like how you share games on a PS4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys might remember this. It's like this:
Classic.
the president of Sony Games handing like to a developer, it's like, "Oh, you want to borrow this? Here you go." And that was the video. It was like 5 seconds long.
So
And
funny.
as soon as I saw that, I was like, they're going to make billions. Like, it's going to blow the Xbox One out of the water. And I think it was really telling. And I think going to like a digital format for Nintendo has worked okay because they've kind of been doing their own thing. But I feel like Sony gets so much hype at these award shows because of the kind of like competitive nature of them. Like, everybody wants to tune in to see who's going to win, right?
yeah.
I know they've done side reveals before, and I feel like nobody watched them. So it's going to be interesting to see like what their next steps are.
So I think the other side of this is, besides the fact, whatever industry trends you want to look at for why they may not be deciding to be there, I think they're just making a smart move based on their projects. Like, they don't really have anything to show next year, and I think one big reason for that is that they're pretty obviously heavy in development on the PS5, so there's not a lot project wise for them to show. Like, their next big games are what? Last of Us 2,
Days Gone.
Days Gone. That's kind of it,
Yeah,
right?
That's all I can think
Death
of.
Stranding. If that
Well,
ever comes
I mean,
out.
Yeah,
they
I
kind
wouldn't
of
be
went all in
surprised.
this year, right?
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Spider-Man, God of War. I mean, those are both pretty big on their part.
Yeah, so they blew their load this year, so
Yeah.
there's not a lot left for them to do next year, and so for that reason, I think they're pretty smart to, just decide, hey, we're not gonna get anybody's hopes up about what we may or may not announce there, so we're just not gonna do it at all.
No, I think you're totally right because in my opinion, I feel like Sony has won the last like 5 E3s.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's been pretty, not even close. It's been dominant.
Mhm.
And for them to back out of kind of like that advantage, I think you're onto something where it's like, well, rather than show up and fight a narrative that we lost to Nintendo or Microsoft, we'll just bow out altogether and kind of keep a mystique about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I just think it's surprising, like you guys were saying, that they've been really dominating E3. I would just look forward to watching them and Nintendo every year. Last year was
For
a little
sure.
goofy the way they did it, but at the end of the day, the message they got across were pretty interesting. But I've always really enjoyed their announcements. They've always had probably the best ones overall, and it's just surprising to see them take themselves out of that huge platform for
Yeah.
maybe something smaller. But like like Bort said, it's been working for Nintendo, and I mean maybe it will. I mean I don't see why it wouldn't. People are still going to watch
Yeah.
it. I just feel like Nintendo's got such a hardcore fan base. Like they're always going to have people watching their stuff because it's Nintendo. And
Yeah.
Sony's, it's not quite the same. It's different. They're definitely got their own fan base for sure. I mean, clearly they're selling like the most consoles, but it's still like people just aren't as like vigorously passionate about it. I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But yeah, I mean, they could just be like to not have a whole lot to show. That just isn't saying that in so many words.
Now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I would love to see them go the direct method with the Nintendo uses. Cut out the clunky, guy who comes up, all the sponsors. Those press conferences don't need to be 2 hours long. They always are. Just cut it, make it a direct where it's like game, all back to back. But I do think that they all need to come together and basically decide, hey, let's keep this Super Bowl mentality going that we have at this E3, where everybody's tuning in this week because they know it's E3 week. The whole world's watching essentially, rather than just have them some random, August. It's like, here we go, Sony Direct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of this is kind of the more skeptical part of this, but you have to remember also E3 is put on by the ESA, which is essentially the lobbying group for video games here in North America. And anybody that's going to be at that show has to pay the ESA. So moving away from that, I think that's even bigger. Like it's going to set a precedent for how the industry continues going forward, at least on the market.
My God, how much do they charge? Right? Like,
I mean,
scare away Sony.
Well,
and
not
Microsoft.
I wouldn't say it's scaring them away, but
Could be a matter of principle.
They
No,
have
I
to play
think-
by
I
their
think
rules.
you're right.
Why would you do that when you don't have to?
Yeah, they've canceled E3 before, like totally gotten rid, and it was always over whatever fees or whatever issues they had to deal with, and I'm
Yeah.
sure we're heading towards it disappearing in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah.
Well, unless they're going to show a new Xbox, then I'm going to be caring about Microsoft's press conference next year. Probably, so.
Yeah, they're probably
Well-
pretty happy.
I'll just
So-
get the first 20 minutes to get past the Forza part, and I'll watch the rest.
Okay.
I'm making this go on too long, but the last thing I'll say about it, the advantage it leaves for Microsoft is that a lot of third-party publishers, they like to latch on to, one of the big three, or really just Microsoft and Sony to announce their stuff. So this gives Microsoft pretty much carte blanche to lure in the third-party publishers to announce their games during theirs.
Which they did. I think last year they did a great job of that.
Yeah, they had some really good announcements, but now without Sony being there, it's like, okay, here's your choice.
Yeah,
That
No, we
was a
agree.
good talk.
Cool.
that's a good one. Yep.
All right. Well, let's talk about Trance.
All right, so I'll start off with the most surprising, like everyone else. This will be a nice quick one because there's really nothing to say about it. But I saw that recently, I believe it was at the Game Awards as well, that Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 was coming out at long last, and on the Switch of all places.
Yeah.
I was a dorky diehard fan of Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2. This is all obviously predates Iron Man, the movie, coming out and, Marvel taking over the world essentially. So it was like the incredibly nerdy versions of the comic book characters back in those games. And I love that series. I'm so excited. And it shocks me that it was on the Switch and that it exists at all. And that's really all there is to say. I can't wait to hear more about it and see how Disney Marvelized it is.
Yeah.
Have
It-
Downey doing the voice,
Yeah.
It looks like a mobile game to me. Like I don't want to be. I don't want to be the negative Nancy. I try not to be that person, but I was like, oh, cool, but man, I don't know. Like,
No, I'm with you 100%. Like that was my first instinct when I saw that. I was like, is this like a mobile replacement for that? What was that Marvel game that they had on PC for a while? It was like a Diablo style game.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It reminded me of that too. As soon as I saw it, I like, are these converted assets from something else? Like, this doesn't look like it's built from the ground up.
But then you see it's on the Switch, it makes a little more sense.
yeah,
But that, not to say any of that will take away from it potentially being a really fun game to play. but it's in your surprising news for a reason. Because to me, yeah, it is surprising.
And hilariously, I will say that the original Marvel games, the Ultimate Alliance games, were reused assets from X-Men
X-Men
Legends.
Legends. Oh, yeah,
on the-
those are
yes.
Oh, right.
So
yeah.
I
it's
think they're
keeping
dumbed
with the
down versions
tradition.
of those. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, they were worse.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's the right one you're talking about, but Marvel Heroes.
Marvel Heroes.
That's
the one I was
right,
talking
yeah.
about. Yep.
Good call, Mr. PC.
Yeah. I just had to go look at my Steam library real quick. Okay, well,
And so
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
I was going to go through my disappointment real quick because it'll also be pretty quick. So this was my first Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter World. We talked about it earlier. Great game, like beautiful. Obviously, I mean, it looks like it had so many quality of life changes that the series needed. So many new people played it. Like friends I had that I never expected to be playing Monster Hunter were picking it up. For me, there was one big glaring flaw though, and it was the weird mechanic. And they may have patched this out, so don't kill me if they have. But at launch, you had to basically
Beat a
play through
boss
the
first.
monster missions on single player
Oh yeah.
before you play the game multiplayer.
Yeah.
And as somebody who's never played Monster Hunter before, that was a little rough. And mainly because, oh, go ahead.
You know, especially because I mean, they're like trying to get you invested in these characters and this story about like researching the monsters. That, I mean, frankly, I couldn't care. I mean, I just didn't care at all about it. Like, why were they making me watch the cutscene with the Rathalos coming out? I'm like, man, I mean, let's just be able to get in this mission together from the get go and play. And you know, it took us a long time to figure out how to do it properly. And you know, once the game is done, you can just play it multiplayer or however you want. But playing through the story is such a pain in the beginning.
Yeah, after the cutscene, after you watch the cutscene, you can invite people in. But especially, I don't know about you guys, but when we were playing on the PC version, the first like month and a half, you couldn't successfully team up with anybody because the online was so broken. People would just randomly get disconnected, even if they weren't in a match. Like you would just get disconnected. And
That's really surprising to me on
Yeah.
the PC version, which is built for online, because the online on PSN worked really
That's
well.
great. Yeah.
When you did finally were able to play multiplayer.
No, that is pretty surprising because I mean it. I'll say this: the online worked when I could find a friend to come play, because that was the big problem for me. Was it killed it essentially for me because everybody I knew played more than me, so they basically grinded their way through the story in the first couple of days. So they were ready doing the fun stuff. They were like grinding monsters for armor sets, and the last thing they wanted to do was to like pop into my game and help me fight like some feather velociraptor, you know, when they were like level 100 or whatever, and would just kill it in one hit. So it's like,
I gotcha.
Yeah, well, I think the big scope of everything. Remember that you can play. I mean, that game is 95% multiplayer completely. It's just the very beginning of that game is not like. I mean, it is, but it's like you said, you got to watch the cutscene and do all this other preliminary stuff to be able to play multiplayer, which is silly to me because they've never been like that before. Yeah. But you know, like I said, I've played that game a ton, and now at this point, I don't have any of that. I can just play that, pop it in, do a mission, we'll play together. But you know, so at the end of the day, like it's probably not a huge detriment, but like that first, 15 missions, why? And I know you didn't mention this, but the other thing about that game, which the other issue I had was just the tracking the monsters. It just seems so pointless. Like it's just busy work for no reason.
Yeah. Oh, was that not in the other ones?
No, it was not.
Oh wow, that's all I did was track those things. I feel like,
and like grab all the little pieces off the ground to get better at it. You're like,
I'm investigating. Like, why? God,
I'm so good at tracking.
No, it was a bizarre feeling because I was playing this game that I knew. I was like, this game is great. Like it's awesome, and there's like a wall in front of me that's preventing me from enjoying it, and it's just like these weird Capcom decisions they made. And like you said, it's just a footnote. Like that, I'm complaining about well, I'd say the story's a little longer than people give it credit for, but
it's a definite hurdle.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, let me just throw in my most surprising news, which to me was not necessarily good news, but Diablo Immortal was my most surprising news of 2018 for me.
Good one.
And then in that same aspect, it was one of the more disappointing things as well.
I was about to say, which one was that again?
Yeah.
I think I see both sides to this. Like, first of all, okay, they're making a mobile game just because you don't want it. Wah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you have your own show for your own games, like, which is essentially just a hype machine, it's a marketing thing, and that's what you announce. That's your big
Yes.
announcement.
It's your
That's
last
not-
announcement.
Wow.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say
Oh, it
is
was the last.
yeah. Oh yeah. So
Oh my god.
what I was gonna say about it, and I think like I have no problem with Diablo Immortal. I don't have a problem with the Diablo mobile game. And
Sure.
I don't think a lot of people do. The problem is that that's what basically was the big announcement of the show, and you're announcing it to your core
Your
player
diehard
base, like your
fan.
diehard fans that paid money to come to that show, and all those fans, 95% of those fans are PC people. Okay,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
we're
they're the
gonna make this
diehards.
mobile phone game, okay? And so that was just, I think the way they went about announcing that game was just
Yes.
all wrong. It
The,
just
the
Yeah.
announcement was a mistake.
they
not,
should have just done it
not
later.
the game itself.
Yeah,
'Cause-
Well,
Trust me,
Yeah.
that game is gonna make them money hand over fist.
but like Ward said, that you just think the way they presented the show, what they were doing, kind of like the hype they built up. That's what they built it up for, was a game that's not going to appeal to anyone that's in that audience. at all,
right,
basically.
Exactly.
exactly.
Which again, those guys in the
really-
audience are probably going to play it, but they're just not going to be very excited about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, even
be-
if they don't play it, guess what? All of China is gonna play it.
oh,
so
for sure, yeah, they're
it'll
gonna
be
make.
fine.
Yeah,
Well, my
I'm with
second
you guys.
thought
Really,
on
it's
that.
just the
Yeah, go ahead.
gall.
Go ahead.
It's just the gall that they had to let people believe that they were going to announce like a true new Diablo or Diablo 4 or whatever,
Right.
and knowing in their back pocket that that's what they were going to come out with. And last of all things, like you said, like it's mind blowing.
Well, my last comment on this, and we brought up China's going to play the hell out of it. The other problem I had with that announcement is just further. It makes me realize further that Blizzard, ever since getting bought out by Activision, is just slowly no longer becoming Blizzard, in my opinion. You know, it's less about the fans and more about that bottom line now. And not necessarily their fault. It's just that they're getting a lot of pressure to make that money. Just like the other day, they put Heroes of the Storm into maintenance mode. I think that's another decision that, bottom line, they're trying to make more money. So it's
So
really-
wait, what does that mean? Maintenance mode? Is that like they're
They're not
turning
gonna
off the
act-
servers?
they're not going to actively like develop, new characters and all that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
Surprising.
No, I think you're totally right.
I think
Anyway,
we could
so
do
let's-
a whole separate podcast on Blizzard and
sure,
how do they even need Activision's resources at this point?
right.
Or ever did they ever?
I don't think they
did-
needed it in the first place.
Yeah,
but
because that
whatever.
was in the middle of World of Warcraft's like
Yeah.
hype. I don't know. Yeah, it seemed strange to me from the get go.
When you have your big guys who started that company starting to back out of it now as well. So it's just there's a lot of things there that would be good, like you said on another podcast. So
Yeah.
and then I'll let you guys talk about your biggest disappointment of 2018. Which real quick, somebody Tarnis mentioned in the chat that they put the ROMs on the SNES Classic, and apparently it ran better than the Sony one.
Wait, they put the PS1 ROMs on?
Yeah.
oh,
that's great.
Oh my god.
Don't-
Anyways,
yeah,
so y'all's disappointment was, we'll kind of give it away a little bit, but the PS Classic.
Mine and me and Escar had the same thing, so go ahead.
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so basically, Board and I were very excited when we heard this announcement. And, they gave us a little teaser, which to me I thought it was cool at the time because I was like, oh, they're going to have lots of good stuff because they announced 4 pretty good games. But as time went on, the news got worse and worse. It was, okay, well, here are the first 5. And then it
We're
took
talking
about
about the PS Classic, by the way.
Oh yeah, sorry, the PlayStation Classic. Sorry, it was in the chat. I apologize, but yes, the
Yeah.
PS Classic. That was what my disappointing news of the year, or biggest disappointment in general was. And I have been a big fan of the nostalgic mini systems. The NES was pretty cool. SNES was.
Totally.
I think everyone needs to have one of those
Phenomenal.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got 21 great games. It's perfect, I think. yeah, so the PlayStation to me was just like awesome. I love PlayStation was one of my favorite systems, if not my favorite or second favorite. And then, like I said, when they announced 5 games. Like Final Fantasy 7 was on there, which I love, and Wild Arms 1, which I think is a great game. And I was like, oh, more people get exposure to this. That's awesome. But like I said, as time went on, you start getting, oh, well, they're playing the European version, which don't run as well. I'm like, okay, that's surprising.
That was what blew my mind. So
Yeah.
well, here's the thing. So European versions are PAL. The video standard for PAL games is 50 hertz. NTSC is 60 hertz. So if you go play the PAL version of Tekken 3, it's gonna look like it's running like dog shit because it's running at 50 frames per second, not 60.
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
It doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, I don't understand like if it just costs less. I don't really know why they. But then they announced the rest of the games, and then that was, I just like, I mean, I don't
Not
know.
classic.
Not the
Not
best.
class-
Yeah, not
they're-
the
Yeah,
best.
yeah, they cheaped out big time. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if it was licensing fee or everybody was being too
Well,
difficult.
the
you know,
other
'cause-
thing was those controllers didn't have DualShock, so that cuts out
Yeah.
some of your games as well. you know?
Yes, it did.
Which
So-
that was surprising again because I don't know. I don't think people remember having the DualShock controllers at this point, and if they did, great. But I mean, if you had a PlayStation, you most likely got a DualShock because about a third of the games couldn't be played at all. But
Right.
I just think that yeah, it's just I heard rumors about all these games they had maybe in the lineup they're trying to get, but I assume they just rushed it to get it
Yes.
out before Christmas, which was a silly decision, I think. And I know they like to have things out for that holiday, but putting out a product like that is going to just make it worse when you could put it out in March and have, a lot of great games. And I don't know. I just think it was strange. And like I said, don't get me wrong. They've got a lot of good stuff on there. I mean, I shouldn't say a lot. They've got some great games on there. They've got Metal Gear Solid 1, Final Fantasy 7. They've got Resident Evil, yeah, the director's cut. They've got Puzzle Fighter is a good game. I think Wild Arms 1 is great. But those games I can buy a Vita for almost the same price and download them all for like $5. And I don't know. I feel like, and it's just, to me, it's almost like they've already had that system out at some point, but with way better options.
Didn't
Yeah.
Metal Gear have some functionality with DualShock though?
Yeah,
Yes.
So it's a little nerfed in this version, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
But how do you watch Nintendo do it twice and just hit it out of the park and then mess it up so badly at a higher price point?
Yeah.
It's baffling.
And right when you turn that thing on, you're like, this is lifeless garbage. Like, and I hate to be so negative about it, but the Nintendo has like Mario jumping around with some catchy music, and you're like, oh, cool. And then if you leave it on, it's playing demos of the games. The PlayStation
Presentation's
just,
super nice.
yeah, the presentation's great. Yeah, the Nintendo
On
or the
Nintendo.
PlayStation, yeah, the PlayStation when you turn it on, it just sits there. It's got a green background. No, like nothing's going on. It's got one save slot per game, which the Nintendo had 4.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like, who's gonna play Destruction Derby? Like that game sucked when it came out. No one bought it. I just don't, and I get making the first versions of stuff, but why have Twisted Metal 1 when 2 is 7 times better? I just don't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense. Those decisions like that made no sense. And I get not having Castlevania because they just released it on the PS4.
Right.
I get not having Spyro because they just released a re-release. I get those things, but
Tomb
if you're-
Raider, come on.
Tomb Raider's one of like if your best bet's gonna be freaking like Destruction Derby,
Yeah.
Cool Borders, Battle to Shinden, or whatever that game is. Those games are not fun at all. Like they were fun when they came out. So I don't know why. I mean, Cool Borders I guess pretty cool at the time, but my point is it was just I don't know. I just feel like if they would have given it some more time, they probably could have gotten 30 games on there, and they probably would have had better quality stuff. It would have been it would have just been like an obvious cash grab.
Here's an idea. Like, take the next step with these cool little mini systems. Make it online compatible where you can buy games for it later and download them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
instead,
Yeah, that's what.
they released this really shoddy hardware with an emulator they stole, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Well, supposedly. I don't want to accuse them of anything.
Well, it looks like it's homemade because it runs like shit. If the SNES runs it better anyway, I don't know. It's so stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. The hardware is bad, and maybe that explains why the default is the PAL versions of some of those games. Because
Yeah.
maybe the hardware can't run those games at 60
Oh
hertz.
man, that sucks.
It's insane.
Well, and I'll jump in on this too because the thought process they had, it's just truly staggering because this isn't like you said, you can't buy games for this. It's a lump sum deal. It's all or nothing. You have you have to like get it right in one shot, like Nintendo did. And to think that Destruction Derby and like Snowboard Kids or whatever the game you mentioned was,
Cool
like
borders.
to think that was gonna like have people like climbing in through the windows to try and buy this thing. It's dumbfounding. I was in a Best Buy earlier today, and I was practically tripping over them because there were so many left on the shelves. Like, it's gonna bomb, and it's gonna bomb so spectacularly that I hope that they come up with like some trumped up like DualShock edition where they basically do it again, like they did a redo with the actual games, and find some way to justify it.
I'm worried that that was their original intent. Like, hey, let's do this initial version, then we'll release a DualShock version with games for that.
Right.
Except, they blew it so bad the first time, they may
Nobody's
not.
gonna buy the
do
second
another
one
one.
now. Yeah.
I will say, Esgard was a trooper and still bought his. I canceled my pre-order when I started hearing more about it. But
Trust me.
I'll buy one when they're $20.
Well,
Just to have the
Get them
photo
on
and
eBay.
just
Go
launch
grab
it.
one. Yeah.
That'll be soon.
that's
Yeah.
brutal. $20. I mean, GameStop's giving out free gift cards. They're like, please just take this thing. We have so many. Because I think they ordered so many, and they're like, damn, that's a bad decision.
Yeah.
Buy Fortnite points, get a PlayStation Classic.
And let's not forget the other thing, which is minor, but still, again, a silly decision where they didn't have the power adapter in the box.
In the
Like, you
box.
ha-
Oh my
you,
god.
you
yeah.
have to, and they're like, and, in the same box, they're like, oh, here's the PlayStation Classic. Here's this $10 USB port that you plug in your wall. I'm like, man, really? Why? Like, that is just,
Wow.
it was just a lot of bad.
So
decisions.
it doesn't come with a power cord?
It's got the cord. It doesn't have the thing it plugs
The
into. like,
adapter.
the adapter, yeah, the USB like that goes in the wall, and because they're like, well, you have one on your cell phone. I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm using it for my cell phone, not for this stupid PlayStation.
That's the cheapest thing I've ever heard. What are you supposed to do? Play it at work?
Yeah, I don't know. It's silly. I don't know. It's embarrassing to have, because we always leave the SS and the S Classic on display to let people play. I'm like, I don't even want to put the PlayStation on there. It's gonna drive people away. So
Yeah.
I just didn't want to do that. But anyway, yeah, it's frustrating because that thing had enormous potential. I own so many PlayStation 1 games that I love. And
Oh, yeah.
I mean, in different genres too. I love RPGs, as you know, but there are lots of other great games in other genres that you could have put on there, and they just didn't. So
Yeah.
they even chose the worst. And that they have great platforming games on PlayStation, and they chose the worst one. That Jumping Flash game is garbage. And you could have put Toomba on there, because I get you not putting Spyro, sure, but I mean, shit, Croc would have been better, and that game sucks. I don't know. It doesn't make any. And it's a Sony product. It doesn't make sense that it's not on there. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. So anyway, I'm done talking about it. It makes me mad.
Yeah, I'm fired up as well. Just thinking about it.
Well, you don't own one, luckily. All right, I have to sit there and look at it.
You have to look at your poor choices. You're like, son of a bitch.
It's already gotten.
Like, no,
It's already hanging out the 360
Dreamcast,
in the closet. That
It's
was
like your
cool.
redheaded stepchild. You just take it out of the closet and kick it around a little bit. You're like, get out.
You
Stupid.
guys don't play Rayman 1? No, let's play Rayman Origins. I'm like, that's a good point.
It's like no one wants to go to his house. He just wants to play Destruction Derby.
All right. Well, awesome. Should we start on some 2019 hype then?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's hype it up.
Let's
Hype it
do
up.
it. Escar, let's start off with you, buddy.
Okay, well, I mean, I had a lot of things I could have chosen. Excited about.
Well,
but-
so just if it makes you feel any better, if you want, you can list off a couple other ones, because I was like, I couldn't do it. I had to have
Okay.
like 3, so
Well,
it's no big deal if you want to.
let me name some other ones. That my main one is a different one. I'm excited about Kingdom Hearts 3. I know that's been a million years since the last real one's come out, but I'm still pretty invested in them, so I'm pretty excited about trying. Actually wearing a Kingdom Hearts shirt right now, which is pretty cool. But I'm excited about Sekiro. That's that From Software game that Bloodborne, Dark Souls creators are making. It looks very good to me. I'm pretty excited about that. And then there's a game called like Left Alive, which is made by Square, that looks like a front mission type game. It's kind of like a survival mech game. Looks pretty cool.
Mhm.
But the main thing I'm really excited about is I'm 14 fan. I play that game since it's been out, even when it was terrible. And they're making an expansion they announced like about a month ago, if I remember right. It's called like Shadowbringer, and it's just another expansion to 14, which I adore. I think that game is I'm sorry for you WoW fans. I think it's the best MMO that I've ever played.
It's really good.
It's very good, yeah. And I think that the expansions have been phenomenal to this point. The 2.0 from when it released was great. The first 2 expansions were, I mean, super engrossing. I don't ever care about an MMO story whatsoever, and I'm very invested in this story. And I actually went to the point where I used to skip the cutscenes. I went back and watched them because I'm like, damn, I really shouldn't have done that. But yeah, and they add new classes. I think they're adding a new race. They haven't really announced a lot of stuff yet, but I don't know. 14, I just think is just, I don't know. I love
polished.
it. Very polished. It's got an amazing soundtrack. And I'm not trying to shit on WoW too much, but WoW, you really got to know a lot of the lore to really get fully invested in Azeroth, which I think is fine. But if I didn't play Warcraft 3, I probably wouldn't know who the Lich King was, right? I mean, I feel like that was so to me. 14 is a very absorbed game. Like everything's all in the game that you're playing. You don't need to worry about knowing what anything happened in any other Final Fantasy game. And they've created a very interesting story that's gone on for a while now. But it just keeps getting better, which is again surprising because there's been, I mean, hundreds of hours of story in this game so far, and I still am very interested in seeing what's going on.
That's the only barrier to entry is how much content there actually is. So
right,
you can decide.
Well,
if
and do
that's a
they
good or bad
still
thing.
make you do the previous stuff before you can do the new stuff?
Well,
Or do they fix
no.
that? Yeah.
That you can pay.
Oh, the truth is coming out right now. Okay.
I think so. On the last expansion, Stormblood, I think you could pay. I think it was $25 to basically skip every bit of story content up until the new expansion.
Right.
Which I thought was very strange for them at the time. Like, how are you going to draw new players when you're saying, "Oh yeah, come on in," but give us a little scratch.
Well, and I get the
Square
want
Enix thinks it's taste.
I get the want for them. I know they want you to play the game because they're very
Right.
proud of their story. They're proud of their world they've made. They're proud of the lore they've created. I get it, and that's totally fine. And I really wish anyone that played the game did experience those things because they're missing out if they're playing that game without knowing that stuff. But there's a lot of people that don't care. I've got friends that I've really been
Raid or
trying.
whatever.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
There's a ton.
We have friends that I know for sure that just they don't give a shit. But I've got friends I've been trying to get into the game and they just won't play it because they're like, I don't want to do all this stuff. I want to play with you really bad. I want to raid with you. I think it'd be great, but I don't want to spend hundreds of or whatever it takes to get through this game, to skip the cutscenes, to get to the point to play with you. And I understand that. And it's not how I play games. I've always played MMOs or any game wanting to see the story, or if like say there's like Assassin's Creed 2, I'd want to play the first one to see why. Whatever the sequel, the information is going on. But
Sure.
I don't know. I just think that it should be an option, like Bort I think was alluding to, that you should be able to just jump in and play the new stuff without having to play the old stuff.
Or
Yeah.
pay.
Or pay.
Or
Or pay to play. Yeah. It's also
Or pay.
ridiculous.
Well, and not to derail again, but that's one thing about WoW that they kind of have going for them is you buy that new expansion and it's like comes with a max level. It's not max level, but it's the previously max level character.
10 under the new
Right.
cap.
So it's like
Yeah.
if you want to just start
But-
playing, you can.
But when did they start doing that though? Because that wasn't the case forever.
It was like Lich King, I think. Cal?
Was it that far back? Or was it
Cal?
Cataclysm?
Lich King
I
or
thought it was Cataclysm. Yeah, so I don't know, but either way, this is the third expansion for Final Fantasy now, so that would be equal to, I guess, it was
I
Cataclysm.
don't think that's true.
So either way, I think that's a good thing that I think that everything else should do that too. 14 should do something like that. I don't know what, but
Point being, we're hyping it up.
yeah,
It's-
we're not shitting on this. What are we doing? Stop trying to change this.
The expansion legit looks really good. Like Esgard said, it's continuing the really good lore they have set up. And even Caldera in chat said there that it's worth going through.
Yeah,
Granted, it's a ton of content, but it's really, really good. Very high quality. It's got that Square Enix Final Fantasy polish on it.
and to be honest, it's the best Final Fantasy story since 10 of any of the Final Fantasies that come out. And I would say it's one of
He's
the
not
best,
lying.
a top 3 Final Fantasy game story wise. It's a great, and that's just the 2.0 part. The expansions just make it better. It's very, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like if you like Final Fantasy, it's criminal that you would skip the cutscenes anyway. Like you would want to skip that stuff, but
It's really good.
yeah. So anyway, I'm a fan of
And
it.
as an objective observer, since I don't play either MMO, I think it's cool that we have like another kind of powerhouse that's like in the ring with WoW. because it's never a good sign when you have just kind of like one game that dominates the genre. And I think WoW did for like, or it still does for all I know.
Well,
It's
and I'm one of those proponents of like I want WoW to die so that something else can happen, but that's just
yes,
me.
and I was
And I put a lot of
I was
time and
about to
effort
say-
into WoW for a while in my life,
And
and
you
it's
still
like
buy the expansions though, so you
I
are
still
really
buy
want to
them.
die?
I gotta keep all the collector's
Yeah.
editions, man.
well,
I got 'em
you
all.
guys beat me to the punch. Because what I was gonna say is that I'm really excited to like for this competition to encourage like new entries. So whether that's Final Fantasy, I guess 16 is what number it'd be on, or WoW 2, like that's when someone like me could jump in.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you know, like you
Kinda
said, it's a little
start
daunting to
fresh.
jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
fair.
I will add, like, I don't mean to present another barrier of entry to this game, but this is a subscription-based game like WoW.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that is indicative of the kind of quality you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
Yeah.
think of the gall it takes to charge monthly for a game in this day and age.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good reason for it because the quality shines through.
Yeah, and I think if you have enough confidence in your product to make you pay monthly, I mean, if they can do that and make me feel like it's worth it, I think that's a good thing. And I think 14 has always had. I've always got a ton to do in that game. Like I never feel like, oh well, I'm done. I can just I'm gonna wait till the new stuff comes out. Like I can get on now and I'll have tons of content to do that I haven't played yet, or tons of dungeons or raids or whatever. And yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I feel like you're right. That's a good point. Like that's
Mm.
indicative of the amount of content you're getting with that subscription. So
Cool
I
deal.
like it.
Bort,
I'm excited.
2019
All right.
hype.
Mine is very early in 2019, and that is Resident Evil 2. I'm also excited for all the other things Escar talked about, but Resident Evil 2 remake by far is what I'm most excited about. I am a huge Resident Evil fan. I know Tron is too, but I love it to death. 2 was absolutely an amazing game at the time. Me being a classic fan of the series, like I could go play 2 at any time, but I would think to maybe a new fan of the series that started with, let's say 4 or even at this point 7,
Yeah.
2 is probably not going to hold up so well. But Capcom's coming in and they just kill it with their remake game. Like they did it with the first Resident Evil, in 2002 on the GameCube, and that was amazing.
It seems like they put as much effort into the remake as an actual new game, So that's
Yep.
Oh,
probably
totally.
what that's probably what
Now,
helps.
this-
They've essentially only taken the template of Resident Evil 2 and created a new game on top of it.
Right. Yeah.
So look at this cutscene. Like the graphics are amazing. Obviously, they're using the Resident Evil 7 engine that they developed. I mean, that's a big asset for them for something like this. And it really shows. Like, I am so excited about this game. I'm just gonna fanboy all over this, but yeah.
No, and I'll be in the same boat because I mean you'll have to cut me off. I cannot believe how good it looks and
Yeah.
how it's basically the dream scenario. Because when Resident Evil 7 came out, I was really worried because this Resident Evil 2 remake had been talked about for what I feel like is a decade, or ever since the first Resident Evil remake came out, and we've just never heard about it, never latched on, and then all of a sudden here it is, and it's like it's the best of all worlds. Essentially, it's got the Resident Evil 4 gameplay, which I think most people feel is the best gameplay in the series. It's got the old Resident Evil 1 through 3 feel, which a lot of people really still enjoy. That's why Resident Evil 7 kind of went back to its roots.
Mhm.
And so for this game to come out now, I think it's really shocking because 7 was such a success. I was really disheartened because I thought, well, for the next like decade, we're going to get nothing but like Resident Evil 8 is going to be just like 7. It's going to be first person shooter.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
In a remake, it'll be just like 7. It'll be a shooter.
Well, it
So to
it
see
sounds
this,
like
yeah.
they're doing like, if I remember right, they're kind of where they're gonna.
Say that
Lost-
again. Your mic cut
lost
out.
you. Yeah.
I think they're gonna do almost like 2 projects at once, where they're gonna be continuing the main series and doing something like this.
Mm.
I had read that somewhere. I'm not sure, but that would make
It-
sense to me, where they would do something like, oh, we'll make 8, but we'll also make a remake of this one or whatever.
This is
So,
kind of a common occurrence too, or looks like it's becoming a trend because Blizzard has their own classic series, that they're doing. So like they're redoing World of Warcraft 3 now. I mean, not World of Warcraft, sorry, Warcraft 3.
Warcraft 3.
And so, and they're doing that while they're making their new games. So it's kind of neat to see that kind of stuff happen. Whether they're not necessarily only doing that, it's like, we made this remake, that's our game this year. No, they're like concentrating on two things, which is nice. So you can still get new content, but also updated of your favorites, So
It's all that Resident Evil and Monster Hunter money they're getting.
Oh,
They're
totally.
They're able to do more than one project now.
But to that point, and to your point, Tron, I think like Resident Evil 8, it probably will play like Resident Evil 7, and there's precedent for that. If you look back, Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 all played the same way. 4, 5, and 6 all played the same way. And we're just now in our third trilogy, despite all the side games and remakes we've had. So 7 being the first of the, if you want to call it the new trilogy. 8 and very potentially 9 could probably follow suit with that. But it is really nice to have something like this that harkens back to, to both of the old eras that we love, the 4, 5, 6 era and the 1, 2, 3 era.
And you're totally right. Like, I think 8 should keep with the 7 format. Like, that's how the series should progress. And that's once again why I'm just so shocked that this is, they basically did it all. They appeased the fans. They took what I think is the best Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 2, and combined it with like the most playable and the most fun Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
And it basically just pleases everybody. And I'm so excited.
Oh yeah.
It looks great.
It's like the first game of the year too, which is something to look forward to instantly. But I will say, I'm surprised you didn't talk about Metroid Prime. I thought that would be your game for sure. But...
Well, that's not. They didn't say 2019 necessarily for that. I don't think.
That's
honestly, if we're gonna talk about Metroid, I'll say there's been rumors that they may re-release the original Prime trilogy for the Switch, which I am all for. And
that would be cool.
That would be a really good way, one, to appease fans while they work on Metroid Prime 4, because honestly, I want them to take as much time as they need for that. So yeah, reintroduce everybody to the series by re-releasing the first trilogy, and then maybe announce 4 for 2020 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And just one note on that, I'd love to play just normal controls.
Yeah.
Back to the GameCube style.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Ron, let's talk about your hype of 2019.
All right, here it is.
Which is a great one.
This one, I think a lot of people, I'm not the only, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this did win Game of the Show at E3 last year for the people who played it. Everybody votes differently, but I think the majority of people voted for this. And I think I always get the acronym wrong, but it's either Project CD or CD Projekt is the developer.
CD Projekt Red.
CD Projekt, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And this is their follow-up to The Witcher, which I was another game that just I think blew everyone away when it came out. And now it's like a dime a dozen. I feel like they're releasing open world games that are great, every other month. But I think these guys really know how to make an open world game, and the fact that they're jumping it into this crazy ambitious like Blade Runner type open world game, which I think is, believe it or not, it's as many sci-fi games as we see. I think this type of sci-fi is fairly untreaded ground. Other than, I don't think we said maybe Deus Ex. Oh, I'm sorry. Cyberpunk, is it 2077? I forget.
Yeah,
27. Yeah, because it's it's a memorable year.
I believe Cyberpunk it's like an existing universe, right?
Yeah,
like
it's a
tabletop.
It's
RPG?
A tabletop RPG, correct?
Okay.
And this is based off.
And it's an old one, I think.
Yeah, like 70s or something.
Has anyone played it just for kicks?
No, but to be honest with you, that's what kind of Shadowrun derived from as well. So
yeah.
Now you may not have played the Shadowrun RPG. I played a bunch of it, but
well, you
the
hear that
Shadowrun
term.
turn-based games that have all come out are based off of that as well. So
you hear that term?
Were you guys aware of this?
Aware of
aware of the genre, like this Cyberpunk before the game was like the old game?
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like, really, only tangentially aware, because you hear the term cyberpunk referred to, it's almost its own genre now, and all based off this original, tabletop RPG. So
It's
it
based
really-
off of. It was 1988, by the way, when that game came out.
okay.
Tabletop.
So yeah,
And it's called Cyberpunk 2020, so this is obviously like 50 years later or whatever.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously this universe has, a firm place in fiction, I guess you could say, in that so many things have derived from it over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have a question. Are you concerned? Because I know Witcher is I think it's a great game. But these developers going with a first person, and I know I've heard a lot of people complain about that. And is that something that is concerning to you as far as being a Witcher fan, like the changes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say it totally is. I think the first person shooters for people who are developers who are not that experienced in them I think go horribly wrong, because it's really like you can get everything right. You can get the story right, the world right, the graphics can look great, but if the shooting doesn't feel great, people won't play it. And I think look no further than the Killzone series that Sony made, that everybody pretty much agreed this is like one of the best looking things on console when they came out, but the controls were just so a little clunky that it just killed the whole series. And while on one hand I'm not worried, they kind of have like a blank check because of how good Witcher 3 was, but it is something that's in the back of my mind, thinking it's like, it's a shooter, kind of ground they haven't covered before, and also the driving aspect always makes me a little nervous too when I see that in games.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
We've seen some games, the one that I'm thinking of was like, I think, a great game, but it got a little driving heavy. So it's like,
what game was it? I think it
Yeah,
might cut out.
sorry, it's Rage.
Oh, Rage, yeah.
Rage, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like and not to talk about Rage, instead of this, but I fear that it might go down the same footsteps where you're playing the game less than you're just driving from A to B, and that's something that can
Yeah,
really kind of stick with these open world games.
Rage was such a good game. It's funny because they ruined it by adding that aspect, because the game looked phenomenal, and the shooting and the AI was all just, I thought, was almost better than anything I'd seen at the time. But then you get to the point where you're driving, it's like, why? So
Yeah.
But no, I agree. I just saw a lot of people get crazy about it, and I'm not a passionate fan of, like, I like Witcher a lot, but I'm not like, it's not my favorite thing I've ever played. But there's people that just are losing it because it's like, well, they're ruining this game. And
Well,
I'm like,
I don't know. I think it's less about them making Witcher for me than the genre.
yeah.
Mhm.
The genre and just how well it looks like they've captured it. I mean, I don't know until you play it, but is that, like you said, that genre? It's not necessarily. I think in video games it's a little less prominent than other media. So just seeing this style, this type of game in this kind of cyberpunk futurist type thing, where you're like a bionic, or robot, depending on how much enhancements you want. All that kind of stuff's just really cool to me. So I'm
Yeah,
excited
I mean, the
for
game looks
Witcher.
phenomenal. I think it looks like a really great game. I would be surprised that I'm surprised that people will be so negative about it based on the way it looks. And if you like the games they've made before, I mean, I would be willing to give it a shot. I would think, if I like the other things they've made. I don't know. I mean, the first person is definitely different, and I can see the concern, but I don't know why I would just shut the game down because of that. I was like, I still want to try it. But,
I mean, just the fact their cred, just based off them making the Witcher games, has only increased, over the years. I think they deserve the benefit of the doubt with this for sure.
yeah, and I think it looks great.
And-
too.
And their strengths really as a developer is kind of just like the way they handle choice in the video game, and kind of side quests is another big strength where not to keep talking about Witcher 3 because this is about Cyberpunk, but those side quests were, they were better than the story quests. I've never played stuff that was as, like, you couldn't really tell. Like, if you were just an outside person coming in watching somebody play, it would have each side quest had the production values of like a main quest. And the stories were interesting, and they basically told thousands of little short stories that were fascinating. And I think if you just translate the strength of that developer into this world, which to me I find more appealing than kind of gritty fantasy, and to a first-person shooter, which I also find more appealing than what The Witcher was.
Third person, yeah.
it's going to be a dream come true.
I can vouch for that actually, because I was trying to remember the story with like you go in the village and you got to either kill the plant or let it survive because it's trying to it's withering the land. It's early in the game, but I was like, was that a side quest or was that part of the main story? Because it ended up being relevant later on. I was like, man, did I do that in the main? And then I playing through the game again. I was like, oh, it's part of the main story. I just couldn't remember because it was so like it was impactful, but it was just it was just like just as important as a side quest. So.
Yeah.
It was mind blowing for sure when I played that game. Some beggar that you get spill your wine on him or something in The Witcher, that guy would come back to play later. It's like how is that possible? Like how did they have the foresight to do that? And for them to just take that same concept and use it for this, I think it's going to be. Let's just say this: they got the benefit of the doubt for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, looks good.
Well, I'll mention on a side note, I have Rage 2 as one of my hyped games for the year. So
yeah,
it looks good. I think it looks good.
But we were just
how
talking
do you
about
feel about Rage 1?
How they ruined it with driving in Rage 1, but like I liked a lot of the aspects of Rage, so I'm just excited about 2 hopefully improving and being better. Hopefully they don't ruin it,
I thought Rage could have been very, very, very good. You got bogged down by the driving.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say after the cred that it earned with Doom in 2016, like that gives me much higher hopes for Rage 2.
And they do Wolfenstein as well, right? They do that one too.
Yes,
yeah,
I think
the
it's
same company, right?
The new games, those new ones have been very good too.
Yeah, I played all 3 of those this year.
Those are good.
I played them and they were great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my other super hype game, since you mentioned Doom, was Doom Eternal.
Oh, hell
It's just like Doom on crack.
Hell
Which
yeah,
seems really
see what I did there?
difficult.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, so those are big for me.
Doom was my best game of 2016 , so I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, for sure. So
And that was when Dark Souls came out that year too, right?
That was when Dark Souls came out. That says a lot.
That tells you a lot about Board if you like something about Dark Souls that year.
That's awesome. All right, guys.
They've been hitting it out of the park.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about sums it up for us tonight.
Awesome.
Cool.
That was a solid 2 hours.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you guys stopping by and hanging out.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. We'll have to do it a little more often because I think we only got you guys a couple of times this last year. So I'd like to.
Are you doing a streamer shout out this podcast?
Yeah, I could do that. Who do you got?
Well, I've got one. So I've got one that I know very. It's going to start streaming in the second week of January. Her name is Slowpoke Mom. That's her tag, and it's my
She's
girlfriend.
in the
She's great.
channel.
What's up? Yeah, well,
channel right
I opened my Twitch, didn't realize she was logged in, so it's her. I'm on her right now. But anyway,
did you say Slowpoke Mom?
Yeah, I
Slowpoke
got it.
Mom. Yes, that's her name. So just,
Okay.
just start getting the follows right now. She's pretty interesting to watch, and she's pretty good at games for the most part. So it'll be somebody to watch in the early part of next year.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that she's actually going for it now. So
she's got a bunch of stuff set up, so it should be looking pretty solid here in about 2 or 3 weeks. So
cool. Yeah, once she starts getting a schedule and stuff, let me know, and I'll try to get some word out as well. So.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Cool deal. Well, hey guys, I appreciate you. Y'all have a good night and a good weekend, good holiday.
Yep. Same to you, Pyro.
Christmas is right around the corner, I guess. So.
Yep. Have a safe Christmas. Don't go shopping tomorrow. It's a bad idea.
Oh, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. I don't shop right now. If I'm going shopping, it's going on Amazon to get something that it's 2 days. That's the only way I'm shopping anymore. So
I think you can get a PlayStation Classic pretty easily.
Oh boy, they probably just
last minute gift ideas.
Get a free gift card if you buy it at GameStop.
Oh my gosh, it's one of those things where. Yeah, that's true.
You can use the gift card to buy the power adapter that you need.
Woohoo! Oh, that's awesome.